Okay, good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for June 14, 2021. Sorry. 10 a.m. session. No public testimony is allowed during the review session. The first items up will be discussed is adjournments. Item number 1, 2017-261BZ, 527 East New York Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, just 1 second. So this was a requested adjournment, and it needs to be the last adjournment. We've been in hearings on this case for 2 years, so I would like our counsel to send a dismissal warning letter to the applicant and CC the owner, or to the owner and the applicant's representative.
Okay. Item number 2, 2017-21BZ, 3438 38th Street, Queens. This is a request for an adjournment.
Yes, and again, the same thing, though I understand this is a little, this case has changed a lot from being a variance, which, by the way, the variance portion of the case was withdrawn in October of 2019. So now we're still in the, we're just in the 7336 special permit, and I understand the reason for the delay. But again, we've been at this in hearing for 1.5 years, and there have been 4 adjournments. So this has to be the last adjournment. So a dismissal warning letter will be sent, and we'll schedule it for a hearing after the city after, I suppose, the city council has voted on the text amendment proposal for the PCEs, which will be around late November, something like that. Okay.
Postponements. Item number 3, 219-277BZ, 8104 166th Street, Queens.
Right. So this one, maybe something's happened since I wrote my notes, but this will be the 3rd requested postponement. We need to find out whether this, so I'd like to send a dismissal warning on this one also, so note to council, because it's not clear that this case is going to be prosecuted. So we should, one option is for them to withdraw, or we just dismiss for lack of prosecution. I'm not sure exactly what the technical aspect of it, because we've never held a hearing on this. But we've been waiting to hear this since November of last year.
Okay, item number 4, 2020-33BZ, 437 88th Street, Brooklyn.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, never mind. Okay, I was going to add something about that last one, but never mind. Okay. So on that one, on this one, 2020-33BZ, we're postponing for failure to notice. Okay. And we'll also take advantage of the fact that this is, again, a 7336. So it'll go on for a new hearing if that's what the applicant requests, sometime after the council has voted on the PCE zoning text amendment.
Item number 5, 758-84BZ, 1444 Clove Road, Staten Island.
Right. We needed to postpone this because service was improper, and this is quite confusing and disappointing. It's the 2nd postponement, and I'm not really sure why this applicant rep is not able to understand, or has not been understanding, our notice requirements. They're almost always filed late or incomplete, and I actually gave him a little bit of a tutorial at our last hearing, so I don't actually understand why it's not happening. So if the applicant is listening to this, I would really ask him to call our counsel and have our counsel walk through how you perform proper notice in time for a hearing. You can't wait until 3 days before the hearing to submit notice. So, okay.
Withdrawals. Item number 6, 2019-269BZ, 3425 Rombouts Avenue, the Bronx.
So they submitted a request to withdraw, so a motion to withdraw.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay.
You keep getting,
I can't, yeah, I
sorry.
can't hear her too well. That's what it is.
Sarah, can you unmute yourself and,
Aye.
yeah, you
Okay.
have
Thank you.
action.
Commissioner Sheta,
Yes.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Item number 7, 2019-271BZ, 37 Mansion Avenue, Staten Island.
They sent in a withdrawal request letter, so a motion to withdraw.
Chair Promoter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Item number 8, 2020-29BZ, 14665 Springfield Boulevard, Queens.
So this case is actually being withdrawn, and the old case number 339-02BZ appears as a new case on the SOC calendar. So this was under our instruction at the last hearing in March. So a motion to withdraw this case.
Chair Promoter.
Yeah,
Sorry. It's this, which case are we on?
this is
2020-29BZ.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at old calendar. I was a little freaked out. Okay, thanks. Got it.
so, Tracy, I often am looking at a different calendar because something gets changed in the middle and I don't redo all my whole calendar and the result. So I always just listen for both the calendar number, not the item
Yes.
number, and the address before I speak, because I
Good.
often,
Apologize.
I'm just telling you, it's the same thing happens to me, so.
Item, Chair
Yeah.
Promoter.
Yeah, did I say a motion to withdraw?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Decision items. Item number 9, 315-90BZ, 8206 Astoria Boulevard, Queens.
We received information about the trash pickup and insistence that there is no overflow of the trash in spite of the image that was provided to us by the applicant, I believe, showing overflowing trash. So that was quite a funny thing to say. The trash enclosure has been painted as requested. So everything that we asked to have submitted was submitted. And I would like to make a motion to approve, but now on a condition that trash shall be picked up with the frequency necessary to avoid overflow of the containers with trash. So on that motion, a motion to grant.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown, Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Item number 10, 122-95BZ, 15265 Rockaway Boulevard, Queens. We're deferring this, right?
We have to defer this because we have open DEP and DOT, and the applicant sent in a letter requesting deferral.
May I add something? I noticed some discrepancy in the recorded
Restrictive
deed.
text?
Yeah, and I'd brought it to the attention of council, so the applicant should also use this opportunity to correct that.
Right, no, it's not the recorded deed, it's the restrictive declaration.
Sorry, restrictive declaration. Yes, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Right.
So there's a discrepancy in the statement there.
Right, go ahead, Chase, because we did note some changes to that. Go ahead.
The vice chair did note that the 33-foot mention in the restrictive declaration did not comport to the 35-foot curb cut in the plan. The applicant was notified, and they are going to make these documents consistent in that 33 feet was the correct number. So they will be conforming the restrictive deck to the plans.
Okay, and then the requested changes that you noted are also being made to the restrictive deck, right?
Yes, we asked that the restrictive deck not include that the site shall be operated 24/7.
Right.
Whatever hours the board will grant will be reflected in the resolution and do not need to be a condition in the restrictive declaration.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're deferring that one.
The next item is 2017-145BZ, 241 East 59th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, we have fire department letter of no objection. As requested by council, the language with respect to the ADA requirements was corrected on the plan so that it reflects current ADA requirements, not ones from 1984 or whatever, 58 of 88, right? The statement of facts was coordinated with the drawings also with respect to the total floor area. So I think everything's okay now, and I'd like to make a motion to grant.
Chair Promoter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Oh,
And-
council has his hand up?
Go ahead, Chase.
I believe that this application is for a PCE legalization. I'd just like to confirm with the board whether the term, the PCE is reflected to have opened March 1st, 2017. Is the board granting a 10-year term to expire March 1st, 2027?
I'm okay with it starting now, and particularly in light of the fact that it's likely that the PCE text amendment will be granted, but no, but
Thank you.
in light of the thinking that it should exist, whether or not it's ultimately approved by council.
Okay, item number 12, 2017-289BZ and 25206BZ, 1761 Walton Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, there were no submissions on this, and there's no conditions, so motion to grant.
Chair Promoter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
I just want to comment on this last one. I'm looking at, this was something that was expedited in particular because it's low-income housing under strict financing requirements, but this application was only submitted on May 10th. And here we are on June 14th. So it only was a month to process.
They did a really great job.
He did a great job, and so did our project managers and seeker officer, right? So doing everything really quickly, but the other part of it is noticing when there's simple applications that can just go through. I'm encouraging our project managers to pay attention to those simple applications that don't need a lot of review and that can just go through and be quickly calendared and fill up slots, which is what we did at the last hearing. We filled in an available slot because we had a known adjournment. So that makes it much more efficient. Okay.
Okay, SOC calendar, continued hearing items, 86348BZ, 25916 Union Turnpike, Queens.
Hold on. The prosecution of this application has been delayed due to illness on several fronts. The last time we heard this case was in February 2020. There was a submission on March 3rd, 21, that should be reviewed along with another on June 2nd, 21, although the material included in this latter submission dates back to January 2021. So it's a little, the submissions are a little confusing because they actually kind of all look the same from dating far back. We were looking to have the site cleaned up, removal of the lift from the exterior of the building, and no car repair or parking allowed or seen in photos of the exterior. The info provided is minimal and tells very little. So I asked our compliance officer, Ted Ricketts, to do a site visit, and he provided photos on this past Friday, June 11th. These photos show the sidewalk repaired, but also parking on the sidewalk. So we need a method to stop that from happening, bollards, towing signs, etc. The dumpster seems not to be located in an enclosure and is not shown on the site plan. It needs to be in an enclosure. The photos show much of the conditions demonstrated in the November 18th, 2019 photos. The block wall looks a little better on the outside, but not great on the inside, although painted. We had asked that the entire wall be stuccoed and then painted way back in 2019, and it wasn't. It's really basically a badly laid block wall painted. So it doesn't look good and it needs to be stuccoed. There's also an asphalt curb bordering the wall that isn't great looking. I'm not really sure what that asphalt curb, it's sort of a, it's almost like a little raised sidewalk next to the wall for unknown reasons. And it's not in great shape. Photos from November 2019 show potted plants were sitting on the curb. And we had said potted plants in that hearing way back then, we said the potted plants won't survive the winter. They obviously didn't because they're not in the pictures anymore. There's no sign now of any landscaping at all. But our compliance officer reports that no tire racks were observed at the exterior, which was a concern. The car lift has been removed. Miscellaneous banners have been removed. The asphalt on the interior lot has been repaired. The sidewalk has been installed along Union Turnpike. 79th Avenue wall has been painted. That's for landscaping. Someone's typing going on while we're, I don't know. I don't see everyone. Roy, could you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Okay. No landscaping at the time of visit. No graffiti observed anywhere on the premises. But I do think that the owner should attend the hearing. I believe he attended the last hearing. And so that, and that's doable because we're doing this remotely. So I would please ask the owner to attend this hearing. So Vice Chair Shanda.
It was a little difficult to follow the sequence of documents that was submitted. From what I have been able to review and the information that has been provided by Mr. Rickett from his site visit, as you mentioned, the trash enclosure, given the site is so small and the building, portion of the building is also so small, I guess the trash enclosure has to be on the, has to be located outside. And where the current trash compactor is probably the only location where one could have the trash enclosure. So all they need to do is build out a wall fully and provide a gate so that the trash enclosure can be located there. And that would be along the 259th Street end of the lot. It's just about wide enough for that one trash compactor thing to be there. So that might be the best place. We didn't see any signage analysis. And from the photos that were provided by Mr. Rickett, there were some additional signage that are not reflected in the plans. So those need to be all incorporated into the sign analysis and provide a sign analysis by each frontage. Specifically, this would be a Union Turnpike. So that's the analysis that is missing. With regards to the, the sidewalk, I do notice that the curb cut has been done. But I don't think the previous curb cut was also built properly. This was resurfaced. If you look at the height of the curb cut, it's not the typical height of the curb cut. So it almost is flush to the paved surface. So it's very difficult to distinguish between the curb cut versus the non-curb, where the curb cut is on the sidewalk, where there isn't. So I think to distinguish between there should be a line drawn on the property and probably bollards where there aren't any curb cuts accessing the site. Otherwise, the site is too small. It is very difficult to kind of create too many blocks, because at the end, to access two curb cuts that are on Union, it would require some utilization of the sidewalk. But I do agree that does not mean vehicles should be parked on the sidewalk.
So just to understand, what you're saying is the curb wasn't properly installed, not the curb.
Right.
cut.
If you look at the first photo that was submitted by Mr. Record, which is sidewalk repaired, if you look at the depth of the height of the sidewalk from the street level, there really is not any. And I think that they just kind of repaved the existing sidewalk. And because of that, there really is not a distinct curb cut.
Right.
So
To say it another way, the curb, which is not a curb cut, the curb is reduced, right? It's
absolutely.
almost with the street.
Yeah. So to show it in the on the site for people to access the site, the applicant should just paint the portion of the curb cut that is to be used to access the site.
Okay. Okay. So you
I
keep,
mean, otherwise they will be cutting right through any portion of the curb.
so they'll probably do it anyway because the painted portion. So in other words, the curb isn't probably legally built. The sidewalk's not legally built because it's required by DOT regulations to have an actual steel edged curb. That's the DOT regulation. Painting that's nice. But if
Right. I mean, we don't know who built the sidewalk. I'm just giving the benefit of the doubt in terms of that was the condition it was in. So how do we try to make sure that the maneuverability within the site is within the limit and comports with the plans that we have?
Right. Okay. Okay.
And I would also suggest that the applicant reach out to the Parks Department to provide 2 street trees. There are 2 empty tree pits along 79th Avenue. So they should reach out to the Parks Department to have those 2 trees planted on those 2 tree pits.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
I was happy to see the forward motion from the applicant in terms of actually repairing the different items that you both have noted, like the sidewalk, the asphalt, the removing of the tire rack, the removing of the outdoor lift. However, I agree with the vice chair that we need to see a signage analysis form, because it still seems like there's a lot of signage, even though they had reduced the extraneous signage. Also, it was very interesting to see, because when they had put the planters out in the back, we all objected and said that won't last because it's in planters. And clearly a few months later, what do you know, it's gone. Proof that planters don't last in the long term. So I'd like to see what they're going to do to resolve the issue of no landscaping.
Mhm.
That's it for me.
Actually, can I go back to the landscaping? I think when we had, this was raised at the initial hearing, and we looked at the old site plan, and that asphalt area is not part of the property. It is part of the city sidewalk, So that's why I think we stepped away from asking the applicant to landscape that asphalt area. Why it was done that way, none of us seem to know, and there isn't any documentation to clearly state that. So the applicant in the best possible way they put some potted plants, but it's a city sidewalk. That's what I seem to remember that discussion we had, and the applicant said it's not on their property. But the
Right.
applicant could clarify that.
Oh, it's been such a long time for this case. It's hard to remember everything.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So, and I think there's no place else for landscaping within the site itself. That's the problem. And it's really too bad because that little sort of asphalt sidewalk thing would make a great planting bed. Sometimes we do see property owners planting in those areas that are city sidewalk. But we kind of can't, there's nothing that we can really do about it. I see that Mr. Duarte is raising his hand. We're in review session now, Mr. Duarte. So when we finish talking about all of the cases, then we'll open it up to the public hearing and we'll invite you to speak. So if you know how, please lower your hand. Thank you. All right, Commissioner Sheta. Oh, are you finished? Commissioner Ollie Brown, did you say everything? Okay, Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I want to echo what my colleagues indicated regarding the site. It was been tough for me to navigate through the different submissions, especially the last one. It was like some missing photos. We had to notify the applicant. I believe the project manager sent an email to the applicant regarding 2 missing photos, and despite of that, I haven't seen any response from the applicant. In fact, we had to end up sending our compliance officer to the site to take some photos, and I believe the parking on the sidewalk should stop. They should take whatever measure they need to make sure and ensure to us that's not going to be any parking on the sidewalk. I want to thank them for removing the things that we said need to be removed, but we need to get this done sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Shibeta.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll echo, I'm glad that the tire racks are gone. That was one of our major concerns from the beginning of this case. I like that they painted the painting of the wall, but I hate to nitpick, but I would prefer if it was one flush finish as opposed to what looks like a patch. There's bricks on it. It's like one part is, seems patch, and then there's a brick finish. I'm not sure why they did that. It was like an explanation for it. You know, the cars on the sidewalk has been something that is we've periodically seen on my site visit about what I think is about a year and a half ago. There wasn't cars, and then there was, and then there was, and then now there is again. And you can see that this is like from looking at the photos that Mr. Ricketts provided. You can see that this is something that is prevalent now. There's lots of driving on that sidewalk. You can see the tire marks on the sidewalk in one of the photos. 2 different sets of tire marks coming from that property. So they need to give us something. I know that an operation plan, something that's going to ensure that this is not going to be the way that this is going to be left. I want to note that this has been around, first hearing on this was in 2019, and we've had 4 adjournments. And while I really appreciate the forward motion, we need to come to a finality here.
Okay, thanks. So just to preface again, there's been illness in the applicant group. So that's what slowed down this application. So the board is understanding of those kind of life realities.
Of course.
All right, anything else? Anybody else? Okay.
Next item 14 is 16949BZ, 5270 Amboy Road, Staten Island.
Okay. In response to the board's directions, the convenience store and rear enlargement have been removed from the proposal. However, there remains a proposal to enlarge the building to the maximum permitted 50% of the original floor area, or 747 square feet, for a new service bay and trash area inside the building. I'm happy to say inside the building. There is inconsistency between the existing conditions site plan and the survey and the existing conditions first floor plan. So that needs to be checked, corrected. They also need to clarify on drawing BSA 7 and BSA 8, the existing versus the new construction. There isn't any kind of designation like that. They need to show on BSA 8 the existing floor area and the proposed new floor area to be added. The space at the rear of the building has a 10-foot planting area, which is shown to be adequate to allow for parking behind the building. I'm not in favor of allowing parking so close to the residential building, which, by the way, is directly within view of the second floor balcony of the residence along the side lot line. And we typically want to discourage any use of that rear area with ground. And here, there should just be a pathway through that area to access the toilet room, which also, as shown on the site plan, would be blocked by cars if they were allowed to park there. So actually, the thinking of allowing that area as parking doesn't work for a lot of reasons. It blocks the access to the toilet, and it will encourage storage and improper use of that back area. So it needs to be landscaped as shown, plus ground cover. Also, leaving the areas that I'm talking about along the residential lot lines unplanted invites the so-called temporary storage sheds. All storage must be inside the building. The drawing should indicate that the existing, quote, canopy, unquote, that extends to the side lot line and the outdoor lift protected by it will be removed. The maneuverability diagram shows only one curb cut on Arbutus being used. So what is the purpose of the other one other than to park in the rear of the building and consequently block the curb cut? So I think it should be removed. The lumen spread diagram shows greater than 0.0 over the side lot line that's shared with residential property. I'd like to know whether these are meter readings or models. All of these lumen spread diagrams need to indicate whether they're based on field measurements or models. We shouldn't have to guess. So they should actually say it, and we have a later case where it's very clear. It tells you very clear on the lumen spread diagram whether that, for example, it is a field measured analysis. I'd like to know what the finished materials are of this structure. What is the gray, what they're describing as gray siding, quote unquote, and white exposed, quote unquote. White exposed what? Gray what siding? We did receive a DEC spill closure email. I'm not sure, this is a Tracy Benke question. I'm not sure if that constitutes a closure, but it's an email. So given the use of the site, until now and too many cars stored on the lot and et cetera, should we give this I suggest giving this a short leash to allow time to make the improvements, since it includes new construction in addition to landscaping, and then return to show compliance with the terms of the grant. That's my suggestion once we iron out all the details, that it instead be a very short term, so that they can go do the work and come back and show that they've done the work. So Vice Chair Shanda.
Thank you. So I have several comments. I'll start with the signage. The proposed sign analysis diagram is missing from the set of drawings. Also along the analysis chart, also the analysis chart should be provided per street frontage. The sign at the corner of Arbutus and Amboy is outside the theoretical curb line and Amboy Road widening line. A note should be added to the proposed site plan stating that the sign will be relocated upon street widening of Amboy Road. With regards to the lumen analysis, the drawings do not indicate the lighting source on the plan, so that needs to be indicated. With regards to the DEC correspondence states that DEC has closed the spill case. It also states that, quote, if subsurface contamination is encountered while excavating for any construction, appropriate remedial and vapor mitigation may need to be taken to prevent vapor intrusion, unquote. This should be a condition because of the addition that is being made to the existing building. With regards to the rest of the improvement that has been made to the proposal, first of all, I appreciate the applicant has listened to our concern and has reduced the building footprint and removed the convenience store, but there are still some outstanding issues with regards to the plan, and it is very similar to what you have stated, Madam Chair. While it's an improvement, I also remain concerned about the space that is there between the proposed landscaping, both along the north side and along the north side lot line and the rear lot line. If you look at the photos that's been provided, even on the gap that is there between the building and the north lot line, a car is actually there. So either put a gate there or put a brick wall there that prevents any vehicles from, this would be a brick wall that would connect the building to the north side lot. This would prevent any vehicles from entering from the parking spaces that are located along the north lot line. And similarly, use it as a paved area or provide some landscaping, grass it over so that there cannot be any vehicles that can be parked there. Similarly, along the rear lot line, the two vehicle parking spaces that is proposed there, I think those can be easily be accessed from the one curb cut that is there on Arbutus, and you could provide 4 parking spaces in tandem. And that would be enough for the 4 parking spaces and landscape the rest of the depth of the rear area. I also would recommend looking at the photographs and the Google Street View, the curb cut, the sidewalk. Again, this also, the sidewalk along Arbutus is almost non-existent. So I think it makes it very easy for vehicles to basically just jump the sidewalk and just get into the site. So there should be a wall or a metal fence along the rest of the site where there isn't a curb cut. So if you look at the Google Street Views, you will see there are cars that are parked along the sidewalk.
Commissioner, do you know how to do screen share?
Unfortunately, I'm looking at the diagram.
Two things, yeah, okay.
So, I mean, the best I can do, let me see. Can I rotate? How can I screen rotate it? Okay. All right. Does this help?
A little bit, a little bit.
Okay. So what I was suggesting, like these 2 vehicles that are parked, the 2 vehicles that are parked along the rear lot line.
Yes.
Instead of that, those 2 vehicles, parking spaces could be in tandem, in front.
Okay.
And the curb cut that is located along Arbutus, if you look at the Google Street View map, it's almost non-existent. And there are a lot of vehicles that are parked along this sidewalk. So my suggestion is to provide a wall or a metal fence. So that would prevent any vehicles from parking along the sidewalk, and it would force the vehicles to use the curb cut, either this curb cut, and even if you want to retain this curb cut, only these 2 curb cuts on Arbutus. Those are my recommendation. And similarly, the gap between the existing building and the north side lot is wide enough where a photo that has been provided by the applicant shows that there's a vehicle parked between this gap. So it is wide enough. So my suggestion is to provide a wall here that would prevent any vehicles from going around and out.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That helped a lot, actually.
Yeah, it is very difficult to explain these things verbally, and unfortunately, I do not have a mechanism other than this. I'll try in future to use this.
Thank you.
And also where the curb cut, in between these two curb cuts that are there on Arbutus, a street tree can be provided that will again further prevent any vehicles wanting to park on the sidewalk. These are all various urban designs elements as a way to keep the sidewalk for public and not for vehicles.
Right. Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Okay, Commissioner Ollie Brown.
I was happy to see that they abandoned the plans to expand out to the rear towards the residential neighbors. And I also was wondering why they left such a large blank area around the building without landscaping. That's
And another way of saying is landscape it. Right.
yes.
Should. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm just writing notes. Okay. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I'll talk about two things quickly. The first one is the landscape. I'll explain why the landscape should be continued in the entire rear. In their submission, I saw that they are arguing about one of the cases, actually the case on Hillside Ave. I believe that case is totally different from this one. The gas station on Hillside is lower than the adjacent residential by about 10 feet. So there is a basic difference here between the two locations. So I believe that the landscape should be continued over the entire rear. The other thing, the frustrating thing, the lumen spread diagram. I wouldn't even call it diagram. I wouldn't even call it a drawing. I would like, I don't want to say, I don't want to even call whoever prepared this as a good engineer. This is a drawing that's coming without a drawing, simply. There is no even title box there. If you look at this drawing and it's submitted on January, the submission is January 21. I'm not sure if I'm looking at the right drawing here.
No, wait a minute. You're on Amboy Road, right?
Yes.
Amboy Road drawing set. Now I can see where the submission is. This
is the only lumen spread I can see.
No, there's
There was a submission. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
There was a submission that came through email. And that's the most recent.
So the drawing, I don't see a stamp on these drawings, receive stamp. Hold on, maybe on the first page. Yeah, I don't see a receive stamp on these drawings, but there was a drawing prepared on May 6, 2021. According to the revision date for Amboy Road, and it has an actual lumen spread diagram, whether you agree with its conclusion or not. It is an actual lumen spread diagram that we don't know what the sources are. So
are we talking about the one that's dated May 19? Like, I mean, the received stamp is May 19?
Yes.
Okay, yes, so I was looking at the wrong one. Actually, I was looking at an older submission that came without even a title box on it. But yes, I'm looking,
sorry, wait. No, not May 19th. There was a May 19th bubbled set, but there was also a May 28th revised set submission. So the last submission was May 28th. Did you get that? I can forward it to you.
I don't see that, no.
I didn't see that either.
Okay, so with the project manager, please forward to the commissioners the most recent set of drawings and make sure that it's in SharePoint, because maybe I downloaded it from the email.
Yeah, there's a May 28 submission, right? That is the one you're referring to, Madam Chair?
Yeah, is that in SharePoint?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's look in a folder called submission.
Yeah, so, part of the problem is, thanks, Jella. Part of the problem is you can't change the names of the folders. We don't know what we're looking at, right? We're used to seeing a list of submissions. So we don't look for a thing called submission unless you tell us to look for a thing called submission. So among the project managers, there must be consistency in the titling of the documents, or I had the same problem. For the longest time, I had no idea that there were any submissions, and I figured out that for this project manager, I have to look for a submission folder. We shouldn't have to figure out like the private code of each project manager. Please don't do that. I feel your pain. Commissioner Sheta, do you see it now?
I'm trying to access the SharePoint, but I'm not able to.
Okay, so you know what? I'm going to just email it to you.
Thank you, Chair.
Well, I'm going to try because maybe it's too heavy. Let's see what happens. So that at least you can review it by the time of the hearing. Sorry. Hard to chew gum and walk at the same time. I don't know.
Just send it to him if you, so you don't have to.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. What's it say? You can send your message after they're reached. Oh, it's going to take forever to load. So I don't know if you already got yours to load, Jill.
I'll try to access the SharePoint.
It says that it was sent to him, but this was just a minute ago. So.
All right. So what I would ask is when we get to the hearing on this, just sort of try to look at it quickly. But it's true that
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
So
I look at it.
All right. So there was a lumen spread done, and my comment is that you can't tell whether it's field measurements or not. So I'll go to Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I think this application came a long way. The only comment that I have that wouldn't be echoing is that I think I understand why the rear is landscaped as it is. It seems that they have a restroom and a dumpster, and I believe the access to get that dumpster out would be through the rear. And landscaping that would make it quite difficult to landscape. I'm sure you could probably landscape a little further up, but I can understand why you would probably that rear you would probably want to leave a little bit of clearance to get the dumpster out and for people to walk in and out of the restroom. In the unfortunate case that you need to use a restroom at a gas station. Other than that, I have no other comments.
So just to point out, the dumpster cannot be gotten out through the rear according to the drawings. You roll the dumpster through the service bay, out the front main rolling gate or however, garage door. And the only thing you need access to is the toilet room, which requires therefore a 3-foot 6-inch curb to meet with, or let's clear area to meet handicap requirements, right? Whether or not that's actually a handicap toilet. The door swings the wrong way, by the way, to be a handicap toilet, not allowed to do that. So it needs to swing the other way. That's what I was talking about before, that there only needs to be a paved path to get to the toilet room. And other than that, the rest should be landscaped. So I see hands up. So Vice Chair Shanda's hand up was first, and then Commissioner Sheta.
Madam Chair, you stated exactly what I was going to point out as the trash and dumpsters only access from the service bay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Sheta.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that I got the file and I looked at it, and yes, I agree that the drawing is a bit confusing. There is no indication whether these are measurements or modeling. I do believe that they are based on modeling. It's the number of like data points shown in the plan are like excessive if it's coming from measurements. I don't think they did all these measurements. So if it's based on modeling, they will need to take measurements, especially around the residential. And I did notice that like some applicants took measurements just for one case. For the measurements, it should be lights on, lights off, the way it is described in the administrative notice. It shouldn't be just one set of measurements.
Right.
Thank you.
So again, you know, because they're doing an enlargement of the building and there may be changes to the way the lighting is handled, this is again one of those things where after we agree with the site plan, on a proposed site plan, then I suggest we just give it a sort of, say, a year and a half or something to actually do the work, get permits and do the work, and then come back to show that they actually meet all the requirements. So, okay. All right, and those were it. Okay, thank you.
Tracy has her hand up.
Oh, I didn't see. Sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Benkett.
Hi, I just wanted to confirm that the DEC website was updated on April 7th to show that the spill was closed.
Oh, okay. So does that mean they don't have time, or they don't any longer issue that same kind of spill closure report? And you just go to the website?
Yeah, I
Right.
was gonna say, I don't know if the applicant would get an official spill closure report, like on their end. They don't usually upload that to the public site, so if they have that, they could send that in.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, thanks. Next one.
Okay, next item is, should I go on?
Yeah, let me just 1 second.
Yeah, I know you were typing.
All right, go ahead.
80361BZ, 1416 Highland Boulevard, Staten Island.
Okay, the trash enclosure is shown on the plans to be moved to the side of the building opposite the commercial use and enclosed with stuccoed masonry with steel doors. This is much better. The air pump and vacuum are shown on the plans to be moved into the commercial use. They need to key the trash enclosure and pipe bollard details to the plans. I'm so confused about why we so often see in architectural drawings or drawings prepared by the engineers, details that just float on a page somewhere, like gratuitously, and they're not keyed in any way, tied into any plans, so you actually have no idea what they're details for. Anyway, they need to be keyed to the plans. They need to dimension the width of the planting beds on Z001 and key the planting bed curve detail into the plan and make the detail not invisible. That detail is in some disappearing ink form, and they need to correct that. Provide wheel stops where the cars will park adjacent to the planting beds. That's a standard requirement. As with the site we discussed earlier this morning, I'm concerned about the open area between the rear of the building and the side of the lot line that's shared with the residential property, and the likelihood that that area will be used for storage of equipment, tires, miscellaneous, etc. And I would like to see that portion landscaped with ground cover, except around the waste oil storage tank and a narrow maintenance path to it. This should be just standard for these odd rear portions, that they're landscaped and ground cover to be where it's not an actual growing bush or tree. The lumen spread study had not yet been conducted. As of my reading of the submitted materials, I don't think anything further was submitted. And I'm not sure why, since we last heard this in late April. On June 9th, a letter from the lighting consultant was submitted requesting a different consideration of the lumen study. I know that other applicants have asked for clarification through their project managers prior to submitting the study. I don't know whether this one did, but in any event, we don't have anything. We can discuss this with them at the hearing, but this particular consultant is making the exercise far too complicated and expensive. We've talked about this in other hearings. And actually, I'm not sure if this is the one, but we received, I think it's from the same consultant, we received an explanation of a lighting study where they had like 5 people attending the study from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. or something like that. You know, obviously that's expensive when you have 5 people working in the middle of the night, well after usual working hours. That is not the intent of the study. Or let's say the board's intent to create that kind of working condition for consultants. Okay, so Vice Chair Shanda.
I was satisfied with the revisions that's been made with regards to the location and the treatment of the trash enclosure and relocating the air and the vacuum tower away from the residential rear lot line. With regards to the lumen spread, I think the last letter that we received, which was dated June 3rd, the applicant was stating that they were planning to do a test on 10th between the hours of 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. So it wasn't quite clear, so from the letter, as to whether they were asking us or whether they were saying that what they're proposing as per our administrative notice, that's too onerous. So I would like the applicant to clarify that during the public hearing. Sorry.
What I got from that is they submitted a letter to us on June 9th that just kind of went to submit, and as far as I remember, wasn't directed to staff in any specific way to respond to, right? And so there's essentially the letter says, tomorrow we're going to be doing this onerous study. We would like some advice on how to not have to do an onerous study, but nobody reached out directly to, as far as I know, a project manager to consult about how to do what would be viewed as a less onerous study. So there was no conversation. I know we've had conversations where other applicants have reached out directly to staff saying, can we do it like this instead? And so we give direction as to how to specify the regions that should be studied. But as far as I can tell, nobody asked. Please, Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we were ever asked to take a look. And of course, they sent the letter in on June 9th, only a few days before the hearing, so it's not really much time. Go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, there was no direct email to me requesting.
Sorry, can't hear you.
There was no direct email to me requesting.
Oh, they just
submitted.
sent. Okay. Yeah, so that doesn't help very much 3 days before the hearing, reaching out for direction on how to do a study, where the last hearing was 2 months ago. So that's weird. Anyway, okay. Anything else, Vice Chair? No? Okay. Commissioner Artie Brown?
I have no additional comments.
Commissioner Shetta?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I believe the submission we got regarding, first of all, I'm fine with all what has been done so far. And I want to thank them for doing that, handling the trash and the other aspects of the site. And I believe the only remaining item is the lumen spread, and that should be wrapped up like quickly. It shouldn't be made as a complicated issue. I believe this applicant has an experience with doing luminous splits at many other sites, and they don't need to like consult us. And if they need, they should have sent something that's very clear. They should have sent us questions, and we should have like responded to them by answers. But what we got is, and I want to say that we need to be like careful getting these kind of submissions. What we got is like somebody's complaining, but he's not putting this in real words. Oh, what you're asking for is very expensive. It's costing us a lot. What I want to say is this: you don't need to send 5 people to the site. You don't need to complicate this. I've done like a lumen spread for one of the sites in Bronx. I believe it was Burger King. It took me like 35 minutes to do 50 readings with my phone. You don't need to like measure or survey the locations for the nearest even 3 inches or 6 inches. If you're off by 6 inches right or left, that's not the end of the world. The idea here is to capture the critical spots of the site that has like the maximum luminous spill, like close to the residential neighborhoods. And that shouldn't be made complicated. It should be simple and should be done quickly. So I would like urge them to get this done and just close up this case.
Thank you. Sabetta.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have additional comments on this case.
Okay. Okay, the next item is
52871 BZ, 13340, 150th Street, Queens.
The drawings have been revised to show proper fencing and landscaping around the portion of the zoning lot that is not to be used for commercial purposes. This work should be started immediately as long as the commissioners agree on the scope of that work. The air vac has been relocated off of the corner of the lot to the side lot line that's shared with what is now a parking lot. Although I don't know how it is a parking lot, it's in a residence district. And so I started to dig into that because I was concerned that this smacked of some similar, another case we have. City records show the three contiguous adjacent lots owned by Cumberland Farms. And before that, since 1977, by ExxonMobil. But I see no indication of any use at all on the site on Biz. So there's actually no listing of this site on Biz. So even if this were previously a legal non-conforming use, the use was long since abandoned. Cumberland is a large convenience store and gas station chain. Aerial imagery of the site shows it forested until at least 2016, but now it is paved over. Given the open physical connection from the paved lots, from that paved lot to the area that is to become the landscaped portion of the subject parking lot, this is feeling suspiciously similar to another application we have at present, where the owner of the lot subject to variance has been making illegal use of adjoining zoning lots. I'm very concerned about that adjacent lot. So Biz actually, as I said, has no property profile for these tax lots. And so note to our counsel and to our compliance officer, Ted Ricketts. So these tax lots are in block 12116 in Queens, 12116 in Queens, lots 8, 11, 12. I would like our compliance officer to send an email to DOB and perhaps our counsel to send a letter to DOB counsel informing them of the lot's current status in this R district without commercial overlay. It's just alerting them. It's not within our purview, but I'm quite concerned that Cumberland Farms doesn't understand that they bought a very large lot in a residence district and they plan on installing a gas station there. Okay. With respect, so just making sure everyone got that, counsel and Mr. Ricketts.
Yes.
Great, okay. And I see Ted like smiling, even though he's.
Acknowledge, Chair. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay. With respect to the signage, applicant provided copies of permits and approved applications, but not the drawings to which they refer. So they need to provide those because we see these signage appeals cases all the time. They have a permit for a 250 square foot sign, but they installed a 3,000 square foot sign. So that's not necessarily the same thing, right? So we need to see the drawings that are being referred to. The issue is that the signage as shown on the drawings provided to the board exceeds that allowed in a C1 for illuminated signage. And I'm frankly not understanding how DOB approves signage for a commercial use in an R district if it doesn't see the sign shown on approved BSA drawings. I really don't understand how that could have happened. The lumen spread diagram is modeled, not field measured, and I'm not understanding how unshielded lighting produces zero spread behind it. And ask why haven't field measurements been taken? And then I think at the last hearing, I asked for Mr. Ricketts to do a site visit, and now I can't remember whether that was already done.
Hey, Chair, I did visit. I did submit photos. I'm not sure. This was at least 2 weeks ago. So they should be on the record for sure at this point.
Okay. So they would be in submit in this application folder.
I believe he probably uploaded them under a compliance folder.
Okay, because it's a current case, could you make sure they move into the hearing folder? Because a lot of the times we don't remember to check the compliance folder. So just make sure that Vincent transfers.
Oh, it's not in the compliance folder. It's in the photos visit. It's
Okay.
called.
I apologize.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's with the other materials called. It's just called photos visit. There are two different files.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Vice Chair Shanda.
Okay, Madam Chair, can you clarify which air vacuum tower you were referring to?
Oh, you mean where it was that was moved?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been moved already, so so there was one adjacent. Hold on a second, I need to open the drawings. Sorry. What is this? 528. So it's on Z1, it says item, which is shown as change number 2. Existing vacuum air station adjacent to freestanding sign to be relocated to new curved landscape buffer along west property line. So if you look at Z1.
Okay, so, all right. So there are 2 air vac stations on this site. So the one that you were referring to is the one that's at the corner of 150th and North Conduit, and that's being relocated along the western lot line.
Right. To the mysterious parking lot. That's why we're all
right. Mysterious, which is a zoned R3A. So an as of right residential building can be built, and we would have an air vac right next to a residential building. My comment is still outstanding with regards to the existing air vac station that is located on the northern side along the curb cut, the northernmost curb cut. At the last hearing, I had raised concern about it being located right next to the lot line, which abuts that 37-foot wide curb cut on the eastern end. And again, it's a similar consistent concern is that when you have the airbags located so close to the sidewalk, you end up having vehicles parked almost on the sidewalk. And I had suggested at that time, at the last hearing, that existing air vac be located next to the parking lots 2 and 3. If you want, I can, now that I've found out a new trick, let me. So the existing air vac is located, this is Conduit, 150th Street. Existing air vac is located right along the eastern curb cut by the northernmost curb cut that is located on the side. And I had suggested that this be located closer to parking lots 2 and 3, so that it does not block the maneuverability of vehicles entering and exiting the curb cut that is located, and also prevents vehicles from parking on the sidewalk.
So essentially right next to the building or something like that, or in between.
Yes,
So they park in a real parking spot.
yes, yes.
So, and with respect to the air vacuum station on the side that should, as of right, be residential use, maybe what we do is we have a condition that vacuum be relocated if conforming construction is developed. Because even next to a community facility, let's say, a house of worship is built there, that would be a drag, right? So, okay, let's do that. Okay, go ahead.
And one last comment, I was looking through the community board's 2017 recommendations with conditions. And I want to ensure that the community board's recommendations are being responded to. One is that there were 2 storage units that were to be enclosed with a fence at the back of the property line. If the applicant clarify which ones the community board was referring to, and if those have been addressed. Second is row of trees to be planted to obstruct the noise and light from the residential properties. I think we have incorporated that into our recommendations, and rows of shrubs to be replanted along conduit property line. And I think those are, I'm not sure about the conduit property line because there isn't that much of frontage where planting can be done. So I'm not sure which one, what the community was referring to.
So the conduit property line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there are did you see the landscape drawing?
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on a second. Let me just, where is the landscape? So sorry, I was typing while you were saying a lot of that. They are showing landscaping on that sort of north-south line that starts on North Conduit, right?
Right.
And they're showing, of course, landscaping as we directed them to in that area that used to be a parking lot.
Right.
And a little bit of it continuing along continuing along sort of the border between the parking lot and this use. Where else were you saying landscaping?
This is the community board's recommendation. It says row of shrubs to be replanted along the conduit property line.
Don't know what they mean.
Right. So if the applicant could clarify that.
Okay. Unless we're talking about the little island there where the sign is.
Maybe.
But it doesn't show anything. Right.
Right.
Okay. All right, thanks. Anything else?
No, thanks.
Ms. Molly Brown?
My only comment had to do with the signage being above C1, and that if they couldn't find the drawings to accompany the DOB approval, that we should be clear in our resolution that we're not approving any waiver of C1 regulations.
Okay. Thank you. So that would be a condition, or more than a condition, sort of an alert, and maybe a note on the drawings. Okay. All right, thank you. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the lighting, I don't think what is submitted is measurements. So we're gonna need field measurements to be submitted. And I would suggest that if any of the applicants is planning on submitting field measurements, they don't need to submit modeling. It's just waste of time and money. So this is one thing. The other thing regarding the signage, I just want to say that the applicant referenced some DOB approval. And when I went to the submitted DOB material, I saw that this material clearly reference drawings. They say, we approve this pair drawing submitted. So if the applicant is claiming that DOB has approved something that's not in conformance with the underlying zoning regulations, he should have submitted, at least the minimum he should have done is submit these drawings to us. And regardless whether these drawings are submitted or not, I believe we should do two things, not just one. Number one, we should have the applicant add one note to the plans indicating that BSA is not waiving any of the signage regulations for the subject application. And the second thing, we should make it clear in our resolution that no signage waiver is included under this resolution. So we cover ourselves. And I'm not sure if we should actually like notify DOB or not.
So I just want to, because I assume that's why Mr. Costanza has his hand up. This site is in an R district. So the whole thing is a waiver, right? But in an R, so the use is an entire waiver. Commercial signage is entirely waived, right? However, the standard for these locations is a C1. So the only thing that we permit is commercial signage, accessories, business signage to a maximum of what's permitted in a C1 zoning district. So that's the comment that Commissioner Otley Brown had, that we do not have more than C1. And if it exceeds it, we're staying out of it.
Okay.
Okay. That's the thing you always have to do. Always check the zoning district, because these things are commercial uses, but sometimes they're in a C district and sometimes they're in an R district. And when they're gas stations, they almost always need variances because those are not permitted as of right in most districts. So, okay.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure. Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the comments made by my colleagues, and I don't have anything further to add.
All right.
Okay, so this concludes the public review session. We'll now commence with the public hearing. Okay, good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals public hearing for June 14th, 2021, 10 a.m. session. Okay, continued hearing items on this SOC calendar. Item number 13, 86348BZ, 25916 Union Turnpike, Queens.
That's me. I'm here.
Hey, Mr. Duarte.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay.
Good, we finally made it.
Okay.
Okay.
Is anyone else with you?
Pardon me?
Are you there by yourself, or you need a?
No, I'm
is the
here with
owner?
the operator of the repair shop, Mr. Garofalo. He's here.
Okay, so let me swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, or to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
The operator?
Hey, raise your hand. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, or to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Please proceed, Mr. Duarte.
Okay. Mr. Garofalo has one question he would like to discuss with the curb cuts, because there's an unusual situation over there and I'm gonna put him on the earphones so he can, go ahead. Explain to them about the curb cut.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Hey, I could barely hear, so, but now I'm in the picture. So I was listening, and I'd like to, everything that was said about the curb cuts. Now, I was a part of this whole thing. This is my business. I don't own the property. I'm just a tenant. But, I've been there for 21 years. And so when the contractor was doing the cement work, I asked him, can we raise the curb? We have to raise the curb higher to, meet their standards. And his reply was, that's impossible. He said, it's totally impossible. Otherwise, you'll be swimming here every time it rains. The water is as high as we could possibly make the curb at this moment. And I have some photos that I just took this morning while I called my guys and I said, take pictures of across the street. The road is so high that it's flowing over the sidewalk on the other side of the street like lava. You cannot possibly make those curbs any higher. It's geometrically impossible without flooding out the properties. The pizzeria across the street, if they wanted a higher curb, the water would constantly be going into their buildings. I would love to forward those pictures to you. Is there an email that I could do that?
Yeah, it's submit, SUBMIT.
We'll make it part of the submission.
Well, we're gonna do that right now. I'm sorry, one more time.
SUBMIT at bsa.nyc.gov. And please identify the property and the calendar number when you make your submission.
We're gonna do that right this minute.
Okay,
Can you tell me the property and calendar number?
It's 863-48 BZ,
BZ
Yeah, I got it.
and it's 259-16
16
Union Turnpike, Queens.
Queens. Okay, you can do that for me? All right, we're gonna do that right this minute. And then I was listening to the other gentleman when he says that he doesn't want to nitpick about the wall. That wall was exactly like that, but covered with graffiti when I took the building over 20 years ago. And now it's a nice red, but what it's facing across the street is an abandoned building that I'm constantly cleaning up after. So I get to look at an abandoned building with garbage everywhere, and my nice red wall that I painted nice and I put flat. Oh, by the way, they stole all those flowers. I spent about $300 on buckets of flowers, and about a week later they were gone. So unless whatever landscaping that you guys were talking about is permanently put into the ground, it doesn't stand a chance. It just doesn't.
We're aware of that fact with the landscaping, but what I wanted to say is Commissioner Shabeta called it nitpicking. I don't. I consider it a requirement of maintaining a site that when the wall, as we look at it, and it doesn't matter what your neighbors are, the way that it works is if your site's a mess, then their site's a mess, then the next site's a mess, and that's the way it goes. But
I get that. I do get that, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but my site is not a mess.
No, but what I want to say is if your site is not up to the standards of what really is a residential neighborhood, this is a low density residential neighborhood, and the business that's on it enjoys a very special dispensation to be a business at all. Businesses are not allowed in this district, right? So you have to be respectful of the neighbors, and we're always going for a residential aesthetic, even if it's a commercial establishment. So
okay, I get that.
Okay, so let me finish my sentence.
I'm
So with
sorry.
that wall, it needs to be stuccoed. That was the instruction way back when we first started talking about this in 2019, was you consistently stucco the wall so it's a uniform surface, and either you use a tinted stucco so it doesn't need to be painted, or after it's stuccoed, you paint it. And that way it won't look like a haphazardly, badly laid masonry wall, because that's what it was, a badly laid wall with like bits of cement here and there. That's what the stucco is for, is to cover it over. So it really needs to be done properly.
Okay, and you know what? That's fine, and I can change that, and that's fine, and I don't have a problem with that. But it's impossible, literally impossible, to do anything about lowering the street.
Okay, so we weren't talking about, so without seeing the photos, which we'll see, it's going to take us a little while. Actually, who's the project? Is it Tony? Is this your case?
No, it's Daryl's. I sent it to Daryl.
Daryl, can you reach out to or do it yourself? Make sure that we get a copy of the photographs that Mr. Garofalo just sent, so that we can actually look at them. We're trying to understand. I was trying to understand, like, how does creating a raised sidewalk? I think what you're saying is the sidewalk would be higher than your property, and then send the rain into your send the groundwater to your property. Is that what you're saying?
100%. It would flood it. It would flood it if it was any higher. It has to be pitched to the street.
Right.
Water has to be pitched to the street. There is no street. The street is so elevated. Like I said, if you look at these pictures, the other side of the street, it's actually, the street is higher than the sidewalk. The street flows into the sidewalk.
So this,
I'm at least 2 inches above.
right. So this actually kind of sounds like a DOT issue. You know,
Correct.
sometimes we've had another case also in Queens where the street itself was the source of an enormous amount of flooding. And so we had to reach out to Department of Parks and DOT to make corrections to the street so that it wouldn't flood both itself and adjoining properties. So I mean, I think
Correct.
that-
This is no longer out of the owner of the property's hands or my hands or anyone's. Unless an alteration is made in the street, this problem cannot be corrected.
Okay. All right. So the reason that we brought this up is we have a problem with parking on the sidewalks and driving over the sidewalks.
Okay, I wanted to mention that also. There's two driveways coming in and out of it was an old gas station 70 years ago, and there's no way of crossing getting in or out of the property without crossing the sidewalk. It's impossible. So as far as driving over it goes, I can't direct the people from driving in or out. If they want to go across the sidewalk and be a jerk, I really have no control over that, but they have to cross the sidewalk to come in and to leave the property. There's no other way. There's no back entrance or anything like that. And as far as parking on the sidewalk, I make a real effort not to. I've been there for a long time. I keep my business clean. I have a 5-star rating. Everybody knows me in the neighborhood. I try to play ball. I try to really be on the side of what's doing right. I'm not a troublemaker. You know, so I don't know what else to add to the crossing the sidewalk. There's really no other way around that.
So obviously when you mount a curb cut, you go across the sidewalk to come to the property. That part's obvious. The issue is that apparently it's happening kind of all the way along your frontage. It should only be happening at the designated curb cut areas. And there shouldn't be parking on the sidewalk. That needs to be controlled by you. So
I do my best to try to control that. I don't want people parking on the sidewalk. I do not. When they pull up, they get out of the car and they leave it there. And that's when one of you guys might have seen, or you know, hey, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. It happens all the time. And then I got to go out and move the car. It happens all day long. They pull up, leave the car right on the sidewalk. Unless I have a man like a valet standing out there, and there's no other way to address it better than what I'm trying to do, which is every time they leave the car, I go out there.
So what we have others do in this situation is they post a sign that says very clearly, no parking on sidewalk, violators will be towed at owner's expense.
That's a good idea. I could do that too. I have no problem doing that either.
Okay, so post a couple of signs in prominent locations where people will see it. And
Absolutely.
But then you have to enforce it. You have to call the towing, you know.
Yes, I will enforce it.
Okay, so and then Vice Chair Shanda, you had some suggestions about how to make it clearer. Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of suggestion was where the defined curb cut entrances are, paint those yellow completely so that it's very clear that that is the entryway and the exit way. And as I'm looking at the street view, I don't know if it is possible to ask Parks to provide a tree between the two curb cuts, because that would also prevent vehicles for parking on the portion of the sidewalk on Union Turnpike.
I would love a tree there. And honestly, with my hand to God, I always marked, I didn't want to paint the new sidewalk and have you say, oh, you can't park, you can't paint on the new sidewalk. That's against the city rules. I always paint the curb entrances, and I put a yellow thing in the middle so you don't, I do exactly what you want me to do. However, I did not do that. And I could probably show you pictures from the past. I did not do that because I didn't want you to say, why are you painting on the new sidewalk? You shouldn't do that. I don't know what, I can only do what you guys asked me to do.
I completely understand your concern, but, and I think what you have done in the past, if that has worked, please do that. But
that helps a huge amount, because people, especially older people, they're afraid to go over the sidewalk when they see that yellow line because they think they're going over a curb. They don't have any idea how the depth is, but by giving that illustration of you're not supposed to drive over that, absolutely works. Absolutely. And that would have been there way prior to this had I known I could have done it. It actually looks nice too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
And I would also suggest working with the community board and to provide street trees on your property frontage along Union Turnpike and also on 79th Avenue. You have two empty tree pits on 79th Avenue. So you can ask Parks to provide 2 street trees there and put a new one on Union Turnpike. That would also take away this issue of parking on the Union Turnpike sidewalk.
I agree 100%. And I like trees. I have nothing. Listen, there's no shade on that property at all either. A couple of trees would be nice. I have no problem with that either.
Okay,
the only thing I have a problem with is the curb. I cannot do anything about that. There's absolutely nothing I can do about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, understood. We'll take a look. I still didn't receive the photos. I don't know what's happening with them.
I'm going to use this technique that as I'm looking at the Google Street View, you really can see the site is pitching.
Oh, look, you see the white triangles?
This is from 2019.
Correct. I've been there 20 years. You see the white triangles? Right. That's marking the entrances.
Oh,
that's what I used to always have. You see that?
So I would say paint this whole thing yellow so that it's very clear that is the approach.
I have no problem with that. But if you see this right here in between the two entrances was yellow, and this was painted white with triangles to show you how to come in and out. That was always like that. I did that like that for 20 years until they ripped up the sidewalk, and then I didn't want to paint it over again and have you say you can't do that. So that I'll do that tomorrow if it stops raining.
Daryl, go ahead.
So 2 things. The photos haven't been received yet, maybe just in transit. And I received an email from John Daly, FDNY. He said that he believes it's illegal to paint curb cuts yellow, and only FDNY and police can do that, not the general public.
That's why I didn't do it.
Okay.
Huh.
I kind of figured that might have been the case too, but you're right, it does work. So let's pick a different color. But it does work, but I didn't do it because somewhere in the books, I'm sure I'm not allowed to.
Okay, but so I guess the question is yellow the forbidden thing, or is it painting that's forbidden? So more on that to follow. We'll also, we have direct contact with DOT. We can ask them sort of how you handle a situation like this where a curb cut can actually not be installed according to.
I think white looks nice. I think white looks nice, and that's what I had there in the picture that you just showed me. Let's do it in white.
Okay, but we don't know if what's forbidden is the yellow or if what's forbidden is the paint.
Understood.
Okay, so let's find out before you
Okay,
get
right, let's not go any further with that.
heard you, so we don't want them to get you in trouble. Okay.
Well, right, that's why I didn't do it.
Right, okay, thanks. All right, did we, anything else that we were talking about? I think that was it, right? So,
in the public.
yeah. So is anyone in the public who would like to speak on this? Oh, I just want to add one other thing before we do that. With respect to the trees, that's not something you need to go to the community board with, other than to get community board support. It's a form you fill out online at the Department of Parks that you have an existing tree pit and you'd like them to plant another tree, right? You just go to the Department of Parks website and you fill out a form. Okay.
Okay,
So the community board maybe helps, like, expedite it because it's their community and maybe they have a methodology to expedite, but it's really the property tenant or owner who fills out the form.
well, let me ask you another question. What if I just go back and plant a couple of trees in there? And is that fine with you?
It's fine with me. I don't think the Parks Department would mind. They'd probably be happy. It saves
So
them.
why don't we just do that?
The only thing is that make sure it is maintains those distance from the intersection. Isn't there some minimum?
Oh, I'm not gonna dig up
7
that
feet or
concrete and
something?
put a tree there. You want that to happen, DOT's gonna, Parks Department's gonna have to do that. The existing holes, I don't mind putting a tree in there.
Oh, okay.
I'm not breaking up that concrete.
So there are existing tree pits, and the only other requirement is that they be one of the types of trees that the Parks Department allows, right? So it can't just be any old kind of tree. It has to be one of the ones that you see. There's, plane trees and maples and ginkgos and things like that. It actually has.
Gotcha. No, I know what to do. I'm not gonna do it twice. I'm not gonna have you tell me that's not the right tree and do it again.
Parks might make you take it out.
Yeah, I don't need that either. I don't like working twice.
Right. Okay. Okay, good. Great. Chief Daly, did you want to say something?
John? Chief Daly?
No, I'm good. I used to work for Parks, so I was just gonna make a comment that they have a particular species of tree that you're allowed to plant. So,
Oh, I didn't.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Man of many talents.
Yep.
So now let's go to the public.
Okay, the application we are currently discussing is 863 48BZ 25916 Union Turnpike, Queens. If you wish to call in, the Zoom Weber 19 number is 939-4417-8264. The telephone number, I'm sorry,
No,
is
not yet. No, it's not over.
646-558. Mr. Could you stop talking? Thank you. 558-8656. The passcode, should you require it, is 981875. And if you're calling in, you could raise your hand. *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand.
So there's one phone number in the Zoom room already. If that person would like to speak on this application, please raise your hand with *9.
It's 863-48BZ 25916 Union Turnpike, Queens. This is the only case we are discussing currently at this moment. So if that's not your case, please lower your hand.
Right, well, nobody has their hand up, so no. Okay. Okay, so while we do this, so what I do see, since understood about the curb, and eventually we'll see the photograph when it finally makes its way through the internet, which I understand is in a kind of slow state in the last few days. Anyway, the only thing that I see actually outstanding, other than installing that no parking sign and clearing up this situation with the painting of the curb, is that we need a signage analysis. We need signage analysis because the signage seems to be exceeding the regulations. So again, this is an R district, so the signage cannot exceed what's normally permitted in the C1 commercial zoning district. So Mr. Duarte, we need to get signage calculations and the drawings to support them, okay? Because even if signage has been reduced, it doesn't look like it necessarily complies. Okay, anything else?
Oh, did Ted's photo show that that asphalt curb you said in the back was repaired? You mentioned something about an asphalt.
Yeah, go, so the problem, in just a second, here, the problem with the asphalt curb is it's on city property, so.
Oh, okay.
What do we do about it? I don't know. I wish it weren't, but it's not really, it's not theirs. So, Vice Chair Shanda.
Sorry, just with regards to the trash enclosure, that is still outstanding, and I think we had discussed, I don't know if you finalized on a location or recommendation or anything.
There was never anything discussed about the trash enclosure. Actually, when I was at the hearing in person, they said that wasn't a problem.
No, we can't have trash bins just hanging out. So there needs to be a solution for putting the trash in an enclosure. Okay, so.
I think the current location you have is on 259th Street. That's about 10 foot wide of the lot line. And that seems to be a space that is not being used for any purposes. So if, Madam Chair, I was suggesting maybe that could be the location where it is currently there, but you just kind of box it in with a door.
So right, the apex of the triangle, essentially.
Right, where the.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, so the way that we do this is it's got to be a masonry enclosure. So in other words, you continue your block wall. It's kind of convenient. You already have a block wall. So you continue your block wall around.
It's convenient, but it's not affordable. Killing me.
So here's the thing. In exchange for being allowed to have commercial use in a residence district, you need to be respectful to the neighbors, and trash is not respectful to the neighbors, which is why we put it in an enclosure. So
Okay. Okay.
A mason.
That's fine.
Okay, so let me finish my sentence. A masonry wall enclosure, and actually, this is Daryl's case. Daryl, please send Mr. Duarte a sample of the detail for a masonry enclosure with the steel doors. So you
Okay,
know.
I'll send it to him.
Okay, thank you. So you'll get a sample of what it should look like. That's what should be constructed. And since you're doing the stuccoing, just stucco around the whole thing so it's all one uniform construction, okay?
Okay, going back to the signs, you said I exceeded my sign limit. I don't understand really how. I really don't have much of signs, but anyway, the signs haven't changed at all since the last renewal, but what's going to happen if I put up no parking on sidewalk signs?
Those don't count. We're
They don't
talking
count.
commercial signs that advertise your business effectively, right?
Okay, all right.
So the way that it works is the only way for us to know that the amount of signage you have complies. We don't know if it's more. The only way to know whether it complies is if we have a drawing that measures the signs and does the calculations based on, it works by frontage. So you have effectively 2 street frontages, because that little tiny one doesn't probably count. You have 2 street frontages, each frontage is entitled to a certain amount of signage. And so we need to make sure that you're not exceeding that, okay? There's no way for either the Department of Buildings or for us to know whether you comply without doing a drawing and the calculations.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right then.
I just add.
No, Shamba, Vice Chair.
The drawings submit that was last submitted, when I'm looking at the plans, I think it's sheet 3 of 4. It shows the elevation from 259th Street, and it shows all the signage, at least as of the submission date, and it definitely does not match with the existing signage that's been documented in the photographs you've submitted and also what we received from the compliance officer's site visit. So they need to match.
What submission was this? I don't know what.
This was, I think the original plan 10/29/2018, and it's drawing A003 sheet 3 of 4. That's the complete one, which has all the elevations, and that's the only one that has signage.
Okay, so it's really the last set of complete drawings we received is from 2018. None of the others, everything else was submitted in piecemeal, and we really can't do that. Mr. Duarte, when you submit a drawing, has to be the entire set submitted all at once, even if you didn't make changes to the other drawings, and it needs to have a revision date on it so we know it's the last set. Otherwise, we're completely confused and we don't know what we're supposed to be looking at. And then we approve by accident the wrong set of drawings. Okay? Or maybe he can't hear us.
He can't hear you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He can't hear you because I'm wearing the headphones.
Okay, can you give him the headphones back, please?
Yes.
It makes no sense.
Well, I don't understand why I can't be on speaker.
Hello, Commissioner.
Hi. Okay. Hi, Mr. Duarte.
Hello.
I gotta call you back.
I just wanted to tell you that we need a set of drawings of the signage to show that the signage complies with the C1 regulation. The existing signage on the site, we want to know, does that actually comply with the C1 regulations? And when you submit the drawings, you must submit us an entire set of drawings, not just one drawing. It needs to be the full set with the revision date on that set so we can know that that's the last set of drawings, okay? So the last full set of drawings we received from you are dated, are stamped, received by us October 29th, 2018. And they don't have, and on your drawing, there's no date. So we need you to date your own drawings so we know it's the last version. And that set of drawings has some signs on it. I want to see. Mr. Garofalo, Mr. Garofalo, you cannot speak.
Oh, man, I thought you sent it.
Hello.
Mr. Garofalo has to tell him to stop speaking. Okay.
Oh, stop talking. Okay.
Yeah.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Mr. Duarte. Okay, so the last set of drawings that you sent in 2018 has some signs on it, but we don't think it represents what's actually there. So you need to update it to represent what's actually there. And you need to show on the site plan the location of the trash enclosure, which we've discussed and we agree should be right at the 259th Street frontage. And it has to be a masonry wall enclosure, block wall enclosure with steel doors. And Daryl Ruffin will send you a detail of how those masonry enclosures, which are now standard at the BSA, okay? And that masonry wall should be stuccoed all the way around to match the existing wall that's already there, that's going to be stuccoed and painted all the way around, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Did I miss, Daryl had his hand up first. Go ahead, Daryl.
I just wanted to make a note to Mr. Duarte, check his email. I already sent the trash enclosure sample.
Okay, did you get that, Mr. Duarte?
No, I didn't get that.
Daryl already sent you the trash enclosure.
He sent me something.
He sent you an email showing the detail of the trash enclosure.
Okay.
Okay. Vice Chair Shanda, thanks, Daryl. Oh,
Sorry, that's an old hand raise.
old hand.
I have no
Okay.
additional comments.
Okay, so I think that's it then, right?
How much time do you need, Mr. Duarte?
Yes, I think there's plenty there. Thank you very much.
How much time do you need to do this work?
What are we in? We're in June. Oh, submit sometime in August.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Can you give your headphones back to Mr. Garofalo?
Hi.
Hi. So I just wanted to say, we're going to check with DOT the rules about painting the curb cut, okay? Before you do anything. As soon as we find out what the answer is, then we'll let you know. So don't paint anything yet because we don't want you to get a fine. And we'll find out what the right way of doing it is, okay?
Okay, can you just take one more look to see if the email came through? I don't think it was sent at that forward time.
Oh, okay. Daryl, can you take a look? I don't know.
Yes, it's in.
It's in?
Um, Do we want to look at it now?
I think we need to look at it, but I mean, now we know what the issue is. We're going to talk to.
I would have just liked you to see what exactly the street looks like, and while we're all here together, so
Okay.
I can leave here with a little closure.
No. I don't think anyone disbelieves you. Daryl, is your hand up again? No, okay. I don't think anyone disbelieves you. It's more has to do with what the DOT regulations are for painting,
Okay,
right? We're not asking you to flood your site.
okay.
So, right, okay.
All right, so I got it stuck on the wall. I got to make a garbage area and plant a couple of trees.
Yes, and Mr. Duarte has to do some drawings that include showing the trash enclosure on the drawing and also signage calculations with signage drawings. He has to actually, you probably could do this. Go measure your signs, kind of. And
I'm gonna take one sign down because it's 20 years old, and that should put us should put us close to where you need to be.
Okay, but the point is that unless we see the drawings with the calculations, we don't know whether
I understand that. It's
always drawing based. This is the architecture part of it, okay?
I do. I understand that. But just a question. If we will do these things, do you think that the next time we meet that this could be put to bed?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll do what I have to do.
All right.
I want this to be over already.
Okay. We understand. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Are we finished?
Yes, I'm noting that it's a submission at the end of August, okay? All right.
No earlier.
No, Mr. Duarte needs until the end of August to submit, but by the way, that's okay.
You need till the end of August to do this? We can't do this any
We
earlier?
don't have any, Mr. Garofalo, we don't have any
August?
August hearings, so.
You don't have any August hearings?
We don't
So
have,
we're-
No, to submit it in August.
Okay. Oh, okay. I understand.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much for attending. Thank you, Mr. Duarte. Say thank you to him.
I will tell them, and I'll see you at the next hearing.
Okay,
Okay, have a nice summer.
thank you. You too.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, it's 10 minutes to noon. Should we take a break now and then come back at noon? I don't know how long the next one's gonna take, so I'm suggesting we take a 10-minute break now and come back, okay?
All right, 10-minute break? Okay. We'll be back at 12 o'clock, right? Well, it's almost 12. Okay.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
No, do we have all the commissioners?
I'm here.
Okay. Commissioner Otley Brown. Well, we have a quorum, but I don't see Commissioner Otley Brown or Commissioner Shabeta.
Do you want to proceed?
I'm here.
Oh,
Oh,
they're there.
okay.
Let's go. Thank you.
Okay, we're back on the record for the public hearing, June 14th, 2021, 10 a.m. session. Next item is 16949 BZ 5270 Amboy Road, Staten Island.
Mr. Rampula, allowed to talk.
Philip Rampula here.
Okay, you with anyone else?
No, solo.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Please state your name again for the record and proceed.
Philip L. Rampula. I watched the review session, and if I could dive right in.
Yep, go ahead.
So, Chair, you had made a comment that the existing conditions plans do not agree with the survey, but I just wanted to point out that there are 3 sets of plans that were submitted. There are legal conditions plans, which are the ones that were previously approved by the board in the 60s. Then there's the existing conditions site plan, and then there's proposed conditions. So I know that my survey doesn't match legal conditions, but it does match existing conditions.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me look. Revised proposed, what's the title of your plans? Is it revised proposed plans?
No, it's just, it's proposed condition starts on BSA 7. Let me start from the beginning. Legal conditions start on BSA 1 and consist from BSA 1 to BSA 3. Existing conditions go from BSA 4 through BSA 6.
Okay, so I was looking at BSA, I believe, existing conditions, because I could see that. And what I think is the survey, obviously the survey and the existing condition should match, otherwise it's not a condition, right? So to me, I'm just looking now, the survey says the building is 49.1 and 14.46 away from the property line. Let's just 49.1. Oh, what was I looking at? Okay, well, you know what? Just check.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
I will. We don't need to get lost in the woods on that. On BSA 7 and 8, you want me to show what is being added. So you want it shaded or?
Yeah, just something to make it clear, because at the moment it's hard to know without doing some
Back and forth.
Yeah, back and forth, like forensic work. And
yeah, I know. I was taught by many years ago that this is the way I should do it. But if that's the way you want it, I don't have a problem shading the addition.
Okay.
We'll just do a light gray shade on the addition.
That's fine. Okay.
Okay. And on 8, BSA 8, you want to see the existing and proposed floor area right on that sheet. That's not a problem. I want to go to the signage analysis is missing. I will provide it. The corner sign, that's another one where I think the nomenclature that's being used on the survey and on the plan may be confusing, because I think this was Commissioner Champa. The sign is not in the widening area. It's beyond the theoretical curb line. The widening area is only on Amboy Road. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Because you said there is no widening area on Arbutus, right?
Correct, correct. There's a theoretical curb line on Arbutus that stops, but there is no widening line.
So my confusion, Mr. Rampula, is with the widening of Amboy. So there is the, as I'm looking at the survey, there's the 5'4", a 5.4 foot wide concrete sidewalk.
Correct.
After that, there is a dashed line which says theoretical curb line.
Correct.
Then after that, there is the thick dashed line, to which the arrow is pointed, which says 80 foot to widen. So I assume that is the width of the Amboy Road.
Correct. You're right.
And so the signage currently that is located at the corner is located outside that thick line. So I read it, and I could be wrong, that it is therefore, it would be on the portion of the widened Amboy Street, not Arbutus, widened Amboy Street.
I understand what you're saying, but if you look at the drawings that were approved back in '61, that sign has always been in the exact same location. I'm showing it on the legal condition site plan, which is an exact duplicate of the plans that were approved by the board.
Right, but I don't think that changes the reality, right? You would, in fact, have to relocate that sign if Amboy were widened, right? So it's just an acknowledgement that that sign has to be relocated if Amboy is widened.
Yes, that's not a problem. I don't have a
Right.
problem.
Right, and that's, so I just want that note to be added into the plan saying, should it be widened, it would be relocated. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, it's just, otherwise you'd be driving between the sign and the curb.
I got it. I'll do it. Okay, now for the going back to the last hearing, we were asked to provide a planting area. We had originally come in with a 5 foot wide planting area, and the board said that it wasn't enough.
Right.
And you wanted it more of the area planted. At first, you had said you wanted the entire area planted, but then there was discussion amongst the commissioners that there was a project on Hillside Avenue in Queens that went beyond 5 foot planting. They actually did 10 feet 5 inches. We huddled up with the project manager to get a handle on what that application number was. We requested the archives. We spent the $50 on getting the archives, and we have mimicked what was shown on that drawing, which is 10 foot 5 in terms of planting area. We hired a landscape architect as directed by the chair. We didn't do it ourselves, even though it's just a planting strip. The client paid the landscape architect. It wasn't inexpensive. So now I just want to pause for a second. We're not dealing with a bad player here. We're dealing with a very successful, and the neighbors and the neighborhood likes this guy. And that's why he's got a busy station. It's not that he has no complaints against the property. There are no DOB violations. There are no ECB violations. He's been a good guy. If you insist on us planting that full 19 feet in the back and then up the side, that equates to about over 2,500 square feet of floor area. So on a 12,585 square foot lot, you're requesting us to now plan 20% of his lot. So that in itself is troublesome, that out of everything that he's done, and he hasn't done anything bad, and he's been a good neighbor, now this board wants him to plant 20% of his lot.
So, Mr. Rampulis, so here's the issue, right? We don't want parking behind the building. You're showing it's wide enough to fit cars in there, even though it makes no sense because you can't get to the toilet if you have a car parked there.
No,
So
I disagree with that. My draftsman showed the parking on the left side as you come in the curb cut. If you put the parking on the right side near the planting area, up against the planting area, you have enough space to walk. So there's always been an issue with this board. Where are your employees parking? Where are cars waiting for service to be parked? So we don't want to park all over the residential neighborhood. He has the ability to keep it confined within his zoning lot for the employees as well as cars awaiting service. And it's not.
So Vice Chair already suggested that those 2 spaces that you have shown, and you're showing it as only 2 spaces, but we know well that as long as you have all that space between the rear of the building and the curb for the planting, it will be far more than just those 2 cars. But anyway, those 2 spaces could be parked in tandem up against the building, and then you don't have parking up against the residential use.
I want to do both. I don't think it's a big, I think it's a reasonable request for a guy who's been a good player, a good neighbor, listens to any complaints that the neighbors have at any time, has a business that serves the immediate area, and that's why he's busy, because he's a good mechanic and because he's popular in that section. I'll go even further. I'd be willing to get a letter from each one of those adjoining neighbors. Why? Why?
So I'm looking at the aerial image of the house that's next door that faces on Arbutus and what has been going on adjacent to that house. Don't forget, this is a residence district, right? You're next door to a house. You live next door to the house. It would not be funny for you to have all those cars parked right next to your house, right? So, and I see Commissioner Shetta's hand up. That means he's sharing that same Google imagery, the satellite imagery. That is not pretty. He may be successful and popular, but he is not respectful of the adjoining residential property owner who is trying to live in this very residential neighborhood, not imposed upon by this heavy commercial use. So my reaction to that image that Commissioner Sheta is sharing on the screen, thank you for doing that, is basically a fence that prevents anything like that from happening. And rather than a fence, we always talk about landscaping so that it doesn't end up becoming storage for junk and the so-called temporary storage areas, just like what was done at the side where a canopy was put up with an outdoor lift and all of that, not permitted, right up against a residence. So forgive me, but yes, he may be very popular and people may like him, but he's not, the behavior is not appropriate adjacent to residential. And you need to be conscious of what it would be like to own one of those 2 houses there. You can see that house that's up in the corner where that lift and that canopy are right up against the property line. That's not okay.
I have 2 things to say to that. The width of a car is roughly 9 feet, 8'6". So looking at this aerial imagery, if you saw you see the width of those 1, 2, 3 cars parked there, all of a sudden turned into a green strip that's 10.5 feet wide. That's more than adequate without taking away the man's ability to operate his business.
It doesn't take away the man's opportunity. You can see all those cars parked to the left of there, right? You see
And-
the cars parked,
And
8 cars at least are parked face to face adjacent to the building, right?
what you don't see on this same aerial photograph are any cars awaiting service parked in front of the residential house next door, because he has the ability to keep it on his zoning lot. So I think if we take a situation that appears to be offensive and we stick with a 10.5 foot wide planting island, I think it's more than adequate. Now, I've said this before, but you shoot me aside. That house that we're talking to about Arbutus was only built a few years ago. So here, the gas station has been there since the 1930s. The house is relatively new. So there, yes, there's an expectation of privacy and quiet enjoyment. Let's respect him, even though he's the new guy on the block, but don't take away my client's property rights and he has to give up roughly, what, 20% of his lot area for screening. I think 10.5 is more than adequate, especially with the type of planting that we've proposed, and let him use part of that rear yard for employee parking and for cars awaiting service. You do not want these cars parked in front of other residential homes, especially on Arbutus. There is no parking permitted on either side of Amboy. So what's going to happen? We're going to squeeze the toothpaste, and they're going to park on the residential block, which I believe is a worse condition.
So
How tall? I'm sorry.
yeah, just to finish, one thing I needed to pick up. These are not property rights. You have a variance here, and the variance allowed for a particular use that you're proposing to expand, right? The property rights were limited to that original variance. It doesn't give him unlimited right to use the site in a way that's not appropriate in a residence district. This is an R3A residence district. It's not a commercial district. And so the fact that somebody buys a lot next door and builds a house doesn't mean that they therefore need to suffer ever more from the aggressive commercial user next door that's subject to a variance. Commissioner Shabeta, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Empoli, your argument about the cars parking on the sidewalk does make sense to me in that area of Staten Island where parking is a bit onerous. But how high are the trees that you're planting? Would it provide substantial canopy over the cars being parked there?
Yes, we're starting with planting that is 6 feet tall at time of planting, not 4, but pretty mature trees that are 6 feet, and they're fast growing trees. I would say let's do the 10.5 worth of planting, and I think it's going to be more than adequate.
Okay, Vice Chair Shanda? No, I think, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, none of us want to see any parking on the sidewalk or block any residents' curb cuts to their parking driveway. I would like a little bit more clarification from Mr. Dracula, since you're saying most of this would be for employee parking. If you could provide in more detail as to what is the breakdown of employee that will be parking, how many parking spaces you would need, and how much of the space would be needed for your repair vehicles, and where would you post them? Because that is also critical. Our real concern is that the rear space is going to be used. Also, another concern is that will become a space for vehicles waiting to be repaired, and at the end, it may become the place where somebody is doing repair while the car is waiting to be repaired, or something like that. It becomes like a junkyard, and that's really what we do not want to have. So, if you need to provide a little bit more clarification in your operational plan as to how many employees will be parking on a regular basis, how many number of vehicles you anticipate will be waiting on the site for repair, and how long do they stay on site for repair, and where would you be? So using that, then propose your recommendation for your landscaping and how would you buffer it from your abutting residential neighbors.
That's fine. I don't have a problem doing that.
One
Oh,
last
we
question. You
can't
said there,
any of that. Go ahead, Commissioner Shabeta, but then Commissioner Sheta.
just for my own edification, you stated they're fast growing trees. What does that mean, like a year?
There are two types of trees. I'm just looking it up. Hold on for a second.
It takes years for a tree to reach height unless you plant them at the height, right? Years and years.
Not necessarily.
It doesn't take months, Mr. Rampoula. It takes years.
Yes.
All right.
I understand that, but a locust grows 6 feet a year.
Really?
Yes.
Starting at what height when it's growing 6 feet a year? Commissioner Sheta?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just again, I wanna point out that the other case that the applicant is comparing to, the hillside case, that it has two like main differences from this case. Number one, the adjacent residence over there has its own landscape. It has large trees on the residential property. The second thing, the residential itself is about 10 feet above the station. So when you look, you're not gonna be like seeing directly whatever cars are parking, or in addition to that, they elected to like install the landscaping they indicated on their plans. In this case, the two properties are more or less at the same elevation. So it's more likely that somebody's is like looking at the station is going to be able to see much more than the hillside case. And I believe that the applicant got enough to put like illegal construction in that space between the building and the fence. And it's time now to change. I'm not sure why we're arguing about two parking spots that could be located anywhere else, like next to the building. I don't see this as a big deal at all. And just let's put the right landscaping in, make the neighbors happy, and just move on.
Commissioner Sheta, I respectfully disagree with your assessment. If you look at this job has not been at the Board of Standards and Appeals since it was originally built in '61. The only requirement at that time along that lot line was a split rail fence, and there were some low shrubs that were mandated by the board. It showed an oil tank in that backyard, which has since been removed. I think it's short-sighted to take parking off this site, because on Staten Island, it's all about on-site parking. I don't think that my client would enjoy the relationship he has with his immediate neighbors on both sides and down Arbutus Avenue if his employees, he's got 6 employees, it's in my statement of facts, if his employees started to park on the street for 8-hour shifts in front of someone's residential home. We have had many cases like that. I don't know of any other case where we've mandated more than a 5 or a 7 foot wide planting strip. We're up to 10 and a half now. We're up to 10.
Correct.
But Chair, let me finish, please. We have no complaints on this. We have the community board. All right, go ahead.
For one, we have often required planting from the property line, the residential property line, to the rear of the service station, often, for exactly the reasons that we're citing, that we don't want it to become a junkyard. And your statement that the only time the applicant has been here before had to do with some oil tank doesn't belie the fact that there's an illegal canopy and outdoor lift on the site right adjacent to a residential property. So it has not been complying with the terms of the grant. That's incorrect. And so, and it hasn't been, it's not that it hasn't taken advantage of the space between the service building and the property line. And that's what we're concerned about. And we try to prevent with landscaping to the extent that that works. And I have to say, earlier boards, the ones in sort of the 70s, or let's say the 60s, used to require very deep buffer zones. And the buffer zones really work to separate the aggressive commercial use from the low density residential uses.
All right,
So-
to that, I respond that my client, because I had asked him about the canopy on the left side of the building. He bought this service station 15 years ago. That canopy was there, that lift was there. He was told by the seller that it was legal. It wasn't until I started to become a customer and he was asking me about what he could do that he realized that it was illegal. And that's part of the reason that we're here. So he wasn't the bad player. Did he have a bad attorney? Yeah, possibly. But he wasn't the bad player who put up the illegal canopy and then closed on it in that condition, thinking that he was all right to do that. So I get it. And this gentleman has been looking to do the right thing throughout this entire process. He hasn't said no to anything. But when he's losing a 20-foot wide swath of property that he has, and he's willing to give up almost half of it, I think there's some room to meet in the middle. Especially, Chair, if you said let's put him on a short leash and bring him back in 2 years, we'll see if the 10-foot planting strip worked in that 2-year period. If it doesn't work in that 2-year period, and we're full of complaints and it's terrible and the trees haven't grown and he hasn't maintained it, then I would say, let's plant the rest of it. I think that's fair.
Commissioner Shanda, Vice Chair Shanda.
I'm a little confused, Mr. Rampula, from your statement. All we are asking you is to remove those, not even eliminate, just relocate those 2 parking spaces that are along the rear lot line and make those tandem parking with the building. So it's not like you will be losing those parking spaces, you will have them. According to this plan, all you're showing is you need 4, 6, 8 parking spaces, and we are letting you keep that. We are just asking you to reorient the 2 parking spaces that are along the rear lot line. And then since you won't need any more parking spaces, that takes care of your parking space for your employees and everything, then just pave it, landscape it in a way so that it wouldn't be misused. That's all. But if your drawing is representing something other than what operationally is going to be done, then the drawing definitely needs to be corrected.
Well, I'd like to take you up on your suggestion to do tandem parking behind the other 2, but I would also like to put who normally parks in the back is our employees.
But you're not showing that. So this is very confusing. And I want to also point out that in your initial submission, when you had the convenience store as a sort of an additional leg to the building, you
Right.
also had the service bay going all the way up against the property line, or nearly so, up against landscaping, which blocked off access to the rest of the rear. And what it shows there is 5 parking spaces right against the property line, or against that the landscaped area, which was shallower. And you had 5 parking spaces back there. So you were never, according to that layout, planning to use the entire rear as you are now. So I'm confused by a lot of your statements. You know, you're saying 20% of the lot area will be in planting. I think you need to recalculate your math on your lot, because it's not anywhere close to 20%.
Yes, it is. Between the back and the side, yes. The comment was also made to plant the entire side lot line.
20%. I'm looking at where the theoretical, that's the widening line as opposed to the site, the property line, right?
Madam Chair, I know I had made the suggestion about greening the northern side yard also, but if that seems to be, I'm willing to let that be paved with a tall wall that is parallel, that is basically extension of the existing building up to the lot line. So that would prevent any vehicles from parking there from any side or approaching it, because it's not going to be possible to turn that corner. So we can put a wall there, and a 4-foot high wall that makes it enough of an obstacle for any vehicle to go past it. And if it's going to be paved, permeable surface, that's great. At least there will be eyes and ears on it to make sure it doesn't become a dumping ground. And if you're going to increase it by another half an inch on the rear and put another wall up that is parallel to Arbutus, that is 4 foot high, that prevents a vehicle going in, that takes care of it.
Yes, true.
Where is that wall, Commissioner Shampa? I'm not.
So I'm basically saying extend the building wall that is parallel to Amboy to the northern side lot line, and the wall that is parallel to Arbutus to the rear lot line. 4 foot high wall. So that it's
The leg of that
building
wall
wall.
is 35 feet 6 inches on the plan?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying 4 foot high. 4 foot
No,
high.
but where you are is on the, we're in Amboy Road, looking at the building, the left side of the building is.
Let me use my latest modern technology.
I love it.
So just extend this wall up
with a gate
to the gate. Same thing, take this wall 4 foot high up to this, and then just use permeable surface here. And you said you were going to widen this by another foot or whatever. And then there, what we have is a visual clear line of sight to the rear so that there won't be any junking. And definitely the 4 foot high wall will prevent any vehicles from going in there. And you can have tandem parking here through this and create and have a nice fenced area so that there won't be any parking here or any encroachment of any sort, and put some trees there. And there you go, voila.
You need a gate to get to the toilet room in that wall.
Yeah, and there would be a nice little gate in between from here to get.
I'd rather put the gate after the toilet room, right at that 5'4" dimension.
So that you can get 2 parking spaces in.
I don't want to give up on those 2 parking spaces, Chair. Compared to what he had previously, I think this is a big improvement.
But that's not.
And you're approaching this as if he's been problematic to the neighbors.
I don't want to go on with this back and forth. The board has been giving you directions. Let's just go with these directions so we can move on. We can't be here forever in the back and forth. I appreciate your advocacy for your client, but I think the board has spoken. Okay, so let's just do this thing. All right, anything else that we're leaving out?
The lumen diagram.
Lumen, yeah.
We show at the bottom of the lumen diagram that there are 4 fixtures that are creating light. And I don't have any leakage on adjoining property owners. I have 0. You'll see at the bottom, there's a calculation summary and a luminaire schedule. So there's 4, I can make it clearer and describe where they are, but there's 4 lights underneath the canopy, which are represented by small squares. And that's how we ran it. We couldn't do an existing test and a proposed test because we're actually doing 2 horizontal extensions. So it's really, I'd be giving you ice balls in December. So I can clean this up a little bit and show, call out those on the luminaire schedule where those lights are, but the information is there.
So those little boxes and the little triangle, that's the lights?
No, the triangle is the entrance. The boxes are the lights.
So I only see 4 boxes in the canopy. Are there other light sources?
No, Chair.
So what?
Are we changing anything with regard to the lighting? Like, are we like shortening the pools, changing the light fixtures? Any changes as part of the enlargement is going to happen to the lighting?
The canopy is being added.
Oh, so the canopy's not there yet.
Correct.
That's the main, that seems to be the only light source. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's all you need.
Okay, well.
I'm
So-
not sure if the canopy is going to be impacting the residential, but
So we don't know. So in other words,
Yeah.
the lighting needs to actually accomplish what's shown on the drawings where it's 0.
Right, we're at 0 at the fence. And we took us a great deal of time to find the right light fixture that had shields on it that wouldn't project in a total outside.
Okay.
but these are modelings, right?
Yes, it's modelings. I can't do real.
Because the canopy's not installed yet.
Yes, I understand.
Okay. All right, here. All right, then. Anything else from anybody? Let's go to the public.
The case that we're currently discussing is 16949BZ, 5270 Amboy Road, Staten Island. Should you wish to call in, it is 646-558-8656. The Zoom webinar ID number is 939-4417-8264. And the passcode should you require it is 981875. Please press *9 to raise your hand when you call in and *6 to unmute. If you are in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand or *9 to speak. *6 to whatever.
So there are 2 phone numbers who have dialed in. If they would any of those 2 people who have dialed in would like to speak, please raise your Zoom hand with *9.
The case we're discussing is 16949BZ, 5270 Amboy Road, Staten Island. That is the only case we are currently discussing.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Rampula, how much time do you need to respond to this?
I'm going to need till August to respond to this.
All right, I think if we see what we expect to see, we'll be able to close this then.
Chair, you're not contemplating a term on this project, are you? Because there is no term now.
It's not a term, it's to come back after the work is done to show that you've complied, and then you're done. So that'll make that clear in the resolution. It's essentially some version of a compliance hearing, because there's no way for us to check on it unless you come back in some reasonable time to do the work.
But what is, I don't mean to be argumentative, but what is the building department's role that you're going to make me come back? I mean, if the building department sees that I have to do planting, we're in the South Richmond district. Staten Island is tuned into trees and planting. So the inspectors are going to look at that. I'm just looking to save my guy. I don't want to take his money. I don't want to come back. He's.
All right, Mr. Rampula, there's no way for us to check that the work is done unless we see the work done. And our experience has been, if we give a conditional approval, then eventually 10 years, 15 years later, the applicant comes back because they want to make a change if there's no term limit. And they never complied with any of the conditions. So this is a way of ensuring that the conditions are complied with and that we can allow the application to continue without a term if this was in fact not a term variance. Okay. And DOB does not check on landscaping.
Yes, they do.
Well, not
maybe in the other boroughs they don't, but in good old SI they do.
All right, so maybe they do, but that's not been our experience because we have too many cases where there isn't a shrub on the site. So even though they were supposed to be heavily landscaped, so the only way we can do this is have our own review, okay?
Okay.
And we can call it a compliance hearing, which is much less work, right? We
Right.
call it for a compliance hearing and you have to just demonstrate compliance. It's a bunch of photographs, okay?
Okay.
All right, good. All right then. So then I'm marking end of August submission, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 15, 80361 BZ, 1416 Highland Boulevard, Staten Island.
Hi, I need a few people on this one. So I have Andy from High Point, and he's calling in on a 516 number.
Yes.
So that's one person. And then I have a Mr. D'Amato, who is the lighting consultant.
Okay.
I see Eric Furlano is here. And then I also have a Jim Perry. I don't know if he's calling in or he is, I think he's not calling in.
Okay.
Who's Giuseppe and?
Yeah, Giuseppe is also from the lighting consultant company, New York Design.
So the 516 number, that's Mr. D'Amato, is that correct?
Andrew.
Yeah,
Sorry.
this is Andy Stewart from High Point Engineering. I'm on.
Oh, okay. I just want to.
The model's with me, Giuseppe.
Okay, we ready?
Mhm.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
I'm not hearing everybody else. Let's go.
I do.
I do.
Okay, thank you. Ms.
Elise
Folder, proceed.
Elise Fullader from Eric Palatnik's office on behalf of the applicant. We heard your comments at review session. We can easily, or Andy can easily key the trash enclosure and type of bollard to the plans and dimension the plans on Z001 and dimension the curb, I think you said, and key it on the plan. You asked to provide wheel stops in the parking areas. We can do that. That is not a problem. And then now, sorry, it's very loud here. Andy, would you like to speak about anything I missed or the open area that she asked for?
Yeah, two things. One, clarification. I know there was a comment about the actual details on the landscape plan and the quality of those details. On the plans that I have that were submitted electronically, the details are pretty clear. I just want to know what aspect of them the board could not see on their plan. So if I need to fix anything, I can do that.
The curb detail, the planting bed curb detail turned into invisible ink on the PDFs that we got.
Really? Okay. I'll look into that. Not a problem.
And
I'm
sorry.
Sorry?
I was just going to say that this has happened before with your plans. Sometimes they're such high resolution. I have to reduce them. So I can also try to do that. If you can't see anything, I'll reduce the plans. But sometimes it disappears because it's too high resolution.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into fixing that before I send them back over to Elise for filing. That's not a problem.
So when you when you turn them into a PDF, please read PDF before you hit send. Okay.
Yeah, I usually do. I'm not sure. And like I said, our PDFs came out fine, so I'm not, maybe there was something in the transfer over that was out of our control, but I'll see what I can do about that. It's not a problem. The other item I want to bring up is you had talked about, besides the 6-foot landscape buffer with the proposed arborvitaes that were showing at the rear of the building, as the board has requested, you talked about the area, I guess the asphalt paved area between the rear of the building and that proposed landscape strip, that you kind of wanted to see it as a grass area to prevent storage of materials or anything like that back there. But I think with the proposed 6-foot wide landscape buffer, they really would like to leave this as an asphalt strip for access purposes, in case either for the electric panels are back there, the tank vents are back there. As you noted, there's a above ground storage waste oil tank back there that will need, it needs to be pumped out as needed. And in case there's any kind of emergency situation in the back where they need to get kind of equipment or vehicle access as best as they can, having grass back there really wouldn't be conducive to access to that. We'd like to leave it as asphalt. It is a small area. We are putting in the arborvitaes and the 6-foot wide buffer that was requested along the entire rear lot line. So I think to leave this as asphalt would be best for operation and in case of emergencies in the rear of the station.
So emergencies, treat like emergencies, right? You drive over anything if you need like an emergency vehicle to get there.
Understood.
Access is a different thing, where a path that's wide enough for a person provides access, right? But our experience is, and this is what we talked about at the last hearing, our experience has been that if you allow that area to be paved, it fills up with junk, and it's used essentially as an exterior either storage area or work area adjacent to a residential property, and that's what we do not want. So if you want a pathway to get to those critical elements, I mean, an electrical box, it's just the electricity, right? So a pathway with a permeable material, that's one thing, but the rest should be not grass, ground cover. Grass is ignored and then doesn't grow, but ground cover, something like English ivy or something like that, ends up filling up the area and preventing it from being used.
But ground cover, I think, would preclude the access to the waste oil tank even more so, especially when you have to have a truck back there to pump out the waste oil tank. You're not going back there, reaching a hose all the way around. You need to get some kind of access back there. And I think something like English ivy, it would prevent or efficiently prevent a truck there or something to get back there to pump out that tank. You need a stable surface for access to that.
So wait a second, the tank is right near the edge and the truck doesn't drive next to.
Yes, but there's also parking stalls on that side that a lot of times they're tied up with stalls that are waiting service, and their cars parked there, so they may need to access from the other side as well.
Whoa, wait. Let's not exaggerate here. I'm looking at, no. Sorry, I'm not buying any of this, right? You've got a distance that's, what's the width of that planting bed?
It's a 6-foot wide planting bed.
Okay. Where's your dimension of your 6-foot wide planting bed? It's not dimensioned on the site plan.
It's dimensioned on the landscape plan. You asked us to add it to the site plan. We'll do that.
We read the drawings. Okay, so you have 14. It's 7 feet wide back there. You've got the oil tank, the storage tank, very close to the building, the edge of the building line. That's all you need for access. You don't need the entire thing to be accessed from both sides. And so that's the whole point, right? You have a clear area there where you've got parking next to number 2 and 3. You can pull your truck right there, and I'm assuming there's a hose, but you do not need to have that entire area left open. All it does is invite garbage, storage, etc.
I'll have to discuss this with our client and see what we can do.
Right. Okay. Well, that's easy. You can do it. Okay. Anything else?
Okay, and then the other part of the conversation I wanted to discuss is I had a conversation with the executive director about submitting that Lumen's letter. The other applications that we have in front of you are in the notice of comment stage. And rather than spinning our wheels and talking to a lot of in-between people, we thought it would be better if we could just submit a letter asking for your advice, but more importantly, the lighting consultants are on the call to have a conversation with you about what you're looking for, because we've had a lot of these conversations about it being onerous or not right, and just get a clear clarification to know what we do so we can go out, do these tests, put in all the upgrades, and then do the tests after all the landscaping and everything's been put in to get an accurate lighting study that is what your board wants. So I have with me today Mr. D'Amato and Giuseppe to discuss how they do the lighting testing, if you have any questions, and then what they should do going forward.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I just want to point out the amount of work that takes to get these done accurately, because I've listened to the hearings and I understand the board has also been concerned about how long these take and how expensive they get. It's very tedious. We have to get out to the site early in daylight to mark out the grid, because a 5-foot grid, these sites are very long. They're 130, sometimes they're 200 feet long. And if you've ever laid out a partition in framing, you know that if you're not careful, by the time you get 100 feet away, you might be off by 2 or 3 feet easily. So the sites have to be measured out and the grid has to be generated on site. And then you basically, if you get done early, you have to wait till it gets dark out, obviously, because you can't take readings during the day. And sites just like these, where you have vehicles approaching the site constantly, you have to shut it down. There's just no way you can get accurate readings with car headlights, flashing as they pull in and out of the fuel station. So they do have to shut down the gas station. And then we measure it about 6 times. And you say, why so many times? So many times because we have to take ambient readings. We shut down all the lights on site, and we take to see what light pollution we have from either street lights or other lights that are outside beyond our control. So we take those readings and we establish that as the ambient and existing conditions. And then we turn the lights on and see if there's any increase. Now, there usually is. And normally it requires us to go in and actually swap out fixtures. Sometimes the light fixtures can be replaced or can be manipulated on site. Some allow you to turn away so you could adjust them so that you can be in the clear. Many times you don't. So we have to leave at that point. They have to replace the lights, and then we have to do this all over again. So it's very tedious. The memo that was originally issued required 5-foot grid for the first 20 feet, and then I believe it goes to 10-foot grid after that. So on a site like this, you're looking at about almost 3,000 readings that we have to take if we did the entire site per the memo that was issued. In some cases, you guys have allowed to reduce in scope by taking the perimeter around the joining of residential lots, which really makes a lot of sense. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to do a full site where you're, with the site's 130 feet, 150 feet. As long as we get the illumination level down by the time it gets to the property line and we have no spillage onto the adjoining lots, it doesn't really make sense to do an entire site. Doing the 20-foot perimeter at 5-foot grid probably makes more sense. In this case, it would cut down the amount of readings we take from about 3,000 to about 1,300. And it's done much faster, and obviously it'll bring down the cost of doing these properly. But see, what we're asking really is, can we just do a 20-foot perimeter along the residential lots in this case, and not waste the time and money doing the entire site?
So this is the part that's confusing Commissioner Sheta and I, because we've been having this conversation with or not we personally, but through our staff. We've been having this conversation with the applicant's consultants for the last, I think, 3 months, where we've said exactly that. There's more to it than that. We've said that you need 3, basically what your diagram is showing, 3 rows inside the property line plus 1 row outside the property line onto the residential property, taken at the height of the fence, because we're getting 3-foot above ground, 3-foot readings. I'm not sure why, because what we want to know is what's on top of the fence. So it wouldn't make any sense if it's at 3 feet. But also this whole idea of laying a grid down with little dots, we were never expecting the level of precision that you're laying out a sheetrock wall. We didn't expect you to use a level and snap a line, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole idea was to just using a 5 foot, you know, like a broomstick basically, and hold the broomstick down, you drop it, you move your body over to the place at the end, you take your meter reading in your hand,
If I
mark
can
it on
interject,
a paper, and then you go do it to the next, and then you turn the lights off and you do it again, right?
it sounds easy, but when the property is 130, 150 feet long, when we've tried that in the past, by the time we get 80 feet, 90 feet, 100 feet away, we find out we're way off. It's no longer a 5x5 grid. Now you're off by several feet. And I couldn't give you a drawing that I could say, you know, with all honesty, is done at a 5 foot grid. I mean, I could do that. I mean, if you ever laid out a stud wall, you go 10 feet and you'll be off if you don't use a square and a plumb. And this is no different, except it's a vaster amount of distance.
No, but you're using this vast distance. We just talked about only being 15 feet away from the property line. It's not 150 feet from the property line.
Oh, you're still going 130 feet in the other direction.
No, you stand at the fence and you go out 15 feet. You drop your pole down 3 times, measure. Then you go back to the fence. You drop your pole down to get to the next point on the fence. You drop your pole 3 down, measure. Then you go back to the fence. It's not going to be that inaccurate.
Well, if you're willing to accept a certain degree of inaccuracy, then sure. But you could be off by quite a bit by the time you get to the end. Don't forget now, you're thinking ideal conditions. We've gone to places where there's partly grass, there's partly sidewalk, there's dumpsters, there's sometimes other structures there in the way. So, you know, it's not, but putting that aside, if we don't need to do more than 15 or 20 feet along the property line, that in itself would help bring down the scope and the cost and the time.
What we're trying, Commissioner Shetta, go ahead.
I just want to, we have a professional here, and I just want to put some background in the perspective. First of all, people used to submit to us data based on models. And the reason we asked for measurements is we noticed over like a large period of time that every time people submit modeling data, that the input to the model is not known to us. The theory behind the modeling is not known to us. And we noticed also sometimes that readings, or not readings, actually, predictions, I would say. Predictions go up and down in a way that most of the time does not make sense. So we issued this admin notice and we asked it for measurements. Now, we're asking, I just want to remind everybody that we're not asking for measurements for radiations, meaning that if you're up or down by 6 inches, like I said, right or left, it's the end of the world. No, we're measuring candles or lumens. So if you deviate the location for the reading by even a foot, it's not, when we look at the big picture, we're going to be able to capture whether you're spilling lumens on the adjacent residential or not. One other clue is people have to be smart when taking readings on sites like this. If I were you and I'm going to a site like that and I want to start, I wouldn't start from 20 feet inside. I'm sorry, I would start from 20 feet inside. I would start from inside the site. And if I get, like, I'm 10 feet away from the fence on my side and I see that the readings are zeros, you could just document that and tell us that we measured up to here and we got zeros, and we do not anticipate that beyond this point is going to be any spillage from the lighting system. These kind of, like,
I follow you.
These kind of practice
Yeah,
It's
I
gonna make
follow
your
you.
life easier. And again, you don't have to get a surveyor. You don't have to shoot every single point in X, Y, and Z. It doesn't need to be that.
We don't survey it, but we don't get a surveyor. We don't go that far, but we do measure it fairly accurately. And what you're saying, I understand that. If we hit 0 and we're 10 feet out, of course, we don't need to go any further. Just so you understand, though, our experience has been that most of these cases, it's usually not. And usually we have to do this with an electrician on site, and he's going to have to go up on a ladder or on a lift sometimes, and he's going to have to adjust the lights to make sure we do get the 0 or we do get the ambient reading. So, but there are sites, and I agree with you. Yes, that happens on occasion. Yeah. But if we can get the 20 feet versus the entire site per the notice that was issued, that alone will speed these up. You know, just do the 20 feet around the adjoining residential lots.
And just one more thing. If the reason we, like I said, the reason we said no for the modeling is because we don't know the basis. The model is not calibrated. We don't know how the model works. If you're a smart consultant, I'm sure you are, you can do this. You can do the modeling for the entire site and then do the strip that we're calling for next to the residential, then go back to your model and calibrate it, adjust it. So when you present to us the modeling results for the rest of the site, it's going to be based on calibrated model. So it's more credible. If you do these kind of adjustments and tricks and you present that to us, we're engineers, we're professionals, most likely we're going to take it.
Okay. So
but we need to see something scientific. And that does, when I talk about the accuracy being 6 inches right or left, I don't mean that the accuracy could be 5 feet. If it's a foot even, right or left, we could live with it. If you shoot the reading inside on the side at point X, and when you put on the drawing, it's shifted a foot all around, this is not the end of the world.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
So but you still want the entire site. You're saying use photometric for the rest of the site.
Stop, Mr. Anzalone. I don't want to confuse this more than, so we have this administrative notice and we're learning that these field measurements are costing far too much money, which was not at all what was planned, right? I would like to stick with field measurements where the lighting is existing and not also like a hybrid of modeling, because then we're going to get into a whole thing about, so Mr. Anzalone may know how to do this, but the next consultant won't. And then we're going to have to give them instructions on how to do something and on and on and on. So let's just stick with where the lighting is existing. We do field measurements. We don't have to have them with laser precision, like it sounds. I was even thinking of, you just have a laser and that tells you what a straight line looks like. So you can see your laser on the ground, right? But that's super easy. I have a laser on my phone. So, you know, just saying, there's a lot of this stuff.
No, we've done that. That's fine. But can we?
But just let me. So we don't do a hybrid. I'm afraid that's going to get us too complicated, right? So let's stick with what we discussed, and please try not to do everything with laser precision so that you have to do 1,200 points and that are exactly 5 by 5 by 5, right? So that this goes faster, because the clientele really shouldn't be spending the kind of money that they're currently spending on these studies, you know?
But can we do 20 feet grid around the perimeter? Do you still need to do the entire site per the administrative notice?
I just said, field measurements, 20 feet, 15 of them on the inside of the site, plus to the fence, plus 5 on the out. That's all we want.
Okay.
Don't need on the inside of the site, because our concern is the residential. And the reason we need those 3 on the inside is because we want to see whether it's believable. It can't go from 26 to 0 in 5 feet, right? So we need to see that it steps down, all right?
All right.
Okay.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I don't, unless anyone else has any other questions. I guess all I want to say is we're going to discuss about the ground cover with the client, but at this point, I think for your interest and our interest, we would like the next hearing, we would like to put in all these items that we can.
Yes, we would.
And get this moving along, and then do the lighting testing after we've put in the landscaping, et cetera, that will probably change the readings and finish this up.
Great. Okay, so then let's go to the public.
The case that we are currently discussing is 803-61BZ, 1416 Highland Boulevard, Staten Island. The call-in number is 646-558-8656. The Zoom webinar ID number is 939-4417-8264. The passcode, should you require it, is 981875. And if you are calling in, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand and *6 to unmute to speak.
Right, so there is one person again who's in the Zoom room. If you would like to speak on this, please raise your Zoom hand with *9. That's a caller. Okay, so how much time to respond to this?
I guess a while if we have to put in everything. So.
Right, but so you're just going to have the drawings amended to, so that this is the question, right?
Yeah.
The drawings are not reflecting everything that we want. So either you do all the landscaping and submit a set of drawings that show ground cover. I'm not sure exactly how you do that, right?
That's why I was bringing it up. Yeah, I don't want to wait a bunch of months, have a drawing again, do this. Like, I'm just trying to.
So our next hearing is the 28th? So my question is, could you get the drawings in and by the end of this week so that we just have a quick review of the drawings?
Andy, is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to, discuss with the client the rear of the ground cover, but other than that, it's minor updates, so it's not a problem.
Okay, so the only thing that we would need then is the site plan and the landscaping plan submitted to us by Friday, okay? And so we could put you on for sort of a quick review on the 28th.
Mm-hmm.
That work?
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, great. That's it then. Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is item 16, 528-71BZ, 13340 150th Street, Queens. Anyone with you, Elise?
Definitely Andy. Everyone else probably we don't have to discuss with because we previously on the last hearing discussed a lot of things.
Okay, raise your right hand.
Yep.
Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
I do.
So
please proceed.
Yes, first I'll bring up the air vac. Not a problem. We can move it into the parking spots per Commissioner Chanda's comment. Commissioner Chanda also brought up the community board report, and we removed the sheds. There were numerous sheds. All the sheds on the site were removed, but there was one shed that was in the street that belonged to the city that we could not remove.
A shed.
Yeah, we don't know. We just know it belongs to the city. It does not belong to the client. So we cannot remove. So if the compliance officer goes out and sees a shed in the street, it's not ours.
So there's a shed in the street.
And it's the city's, yep.
Why would we think that was belonging to this property owner if it's in the street?
You asked at a previous hearing when there was photos about all the sheds, and that was one that came up. So I'm just clarifying that it's not ours. If he goes back out there.
Okay.
And the community board also brought up the sheds. So I'm just clarifying sheds. And then landscaping, honestly, I was a very young woman when we last went to the community board, and I don't remember if I was even there. So I think that all this landscaping we are adding to the site, the community board will appreciate and love it, but I couldn't tell you what they said at the hearing. That was 3 or 4 years ago. We have asked to go back to the community board, but we have not heard a response from the community board. So if they do want us to go again, we could, but we've reached out numerous times and not heard a response that they want to meet on this.
Right. Well, they just, way back in the day, that they talked about storage units enclosed with a fence at the back of the property line, a row of trees to be planted to obstruct the noise and light from the neighboring residential properties, and a row of shrubs to be replanted along the conduit property line, which we don't understand. So,
but we're
okay.
putting a lot of landscaping in, so I'm sure they'll be more than happy.
Jella has her hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah. Jella.
Jella.
Hi, I'm sorry. It's too many tabs open, so it's hard to get to the tab right away. I did speak to the district manager, Miss Riddick, and I spoke to her twice. They just don't have the time because they have a bit of a backlog of different land use applications they need to hear, and they don't have time to see this case again, but they are they would like to see site improvements.
Right. Okay, good.
Thank you, Jella.
Thank you. All right, so I don't think there was.
And then.
Zoning lot issue?
Yeah, and then there was measurements, I guess landscaping measurements you asked about as well.
It's really just to clean up the drawing. Let me see here. Mostly I was talking about the site next door. Applicant provide, it's the drawings that we would need to see about the signs, right?
Oh, and the signage, yeah, correct. So the signage, I spoke with the client about providing C1 signage. We're gonna look into how we can provide C1 signage, because I guess otherwise we have what we submitted. We would have to go back to the DOB and foil them or something to get.
Right.
any
Or represented the client to get the signs approved, right?
Yeah,
Usually-
it wasn't us or none of the people here have those drawings, so we would have
It's
to.
an installer who makes those applications.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just think that would be difficult.
Right. Vice Chair Shanda has her hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just another comment that we had discussed during the review session was to add a note with regards to the air and vacuum pump that is going to be relocated from the corner to the western side lot line that would be abutting what could be a possible as of right residential development. That I think, Madam Chair, you had a better language.
So what we were saying is it should be on the drawing that you indicate with respect to the air vac adjacent to that mysterious parking lot, that indicate that the air vac will be relocated in the event that a conforming residential district use is constructed on the adjoining property. Okay, and that'll be a condition.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
got it.
Is there lumen spread?
And then we can do the lumen assessing per the conversation we just had on the previous application.
All right, great. All right, let's go to the public.
The case we are currently discussing is 528-71BZ, 13340 150th Street, Queens. The call-in number is 646-558-8656. The webinar ID number is 939-4417-8264. The passcode is 981875. When you call in, if you wish to speak or raise your hands, press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute. If you are in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand and *6 to unmute.
Right. Again, there's one person who's in the Zoom room who called in. If you'd like to speak on this case, 133-40, 150th Street, please raise your hand with *9. Vice Chair Shanda has her hand up, or is that left over from before?
Old hand.
Old hand. So, but one of the questions I have now is, you know, we always ask for these lumen spread diagrams, but in fact, on this site, there's no adjoining residential uses. So I'm kind of like, we know that this is thousands of dollars to do these lumen spread diagrams. I'm thinking maybe the same note that it has to do with, I see your hand up, the same note that has to do with the air vac goes on with respect to the lighting, that the lighting will be adjusted in the event that an R district conforming use is constructed on that adjoining property. And we forego the lumen spread. Is everybody okay with that? I just wanna.
I'm okay with that, Madam Chair. I was going to suggest the same thing, so I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Do I have agreement from the other commissioners on this? No lumen spread on this application because there's no adjoining residential uses. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, good. All right. All right, so I think I'm just looking. Do we have open issues? Sorry.
I think you just need to put in everything.
Need to put in everything. We need the signage calculations to be C1.
Mhm.
Need the air vac moved on the
I
drawing.
think we're clear, yeah, where to put that, so I don't think.
Okay, so I'm just looking at, I don't see anything that's substantive. Everything is a correction to drawing. So I think we can close this one then. Everyone agree? Okay. Great. Okay, how much time?
To submit, I guess, again, we'll probably need a while. It's a lot to do.
So what's that mean?
Whole summer, I guess, and then maybe September here. Or something.
Okay, so August submission?
Yes, unless anyone from BP, is Eric Furlano or somebody from BP still here?
And Eric is on.
Yes, I'm here.
Eric, do you have any idea how long, just so I'm not speaking without any knowledge, how long you think it needs to put in a lot of improvements on a BP site?
Oh, right, I forgot. So it's a lot of, yeah, it's true.
I can't give you a good answer on that. Is Jim Perry on the line?
I'm not sure. Jim, maybe?
Yeah, end of August is probably not good anyway, because if you have very, very hot weather, you can't plant.
So then October, I guess?
I think, yeah.
Because I know you're closed all of August anyway, you're not doing hearings.
Well, we have the August 30th submission is for the September hearing, right?
So I guess that's the next, maybe.
Yeah.
Or the next after that.
So we say end September submission? You want to do that?
I want to try. I guess I have to get out my shovel.
It's good for you to do a little. But it's actually, you know, it requires breaking up all the asphalt. That's certainly something that could be done in the summer, though, on Pleasant.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. In case of. Okay, good. All right. So then I would like to make a motion to close.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheha.
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this is the last case for the morning. So this concludes the public hearing for June 14th, 10 a.m. session. So when do you want to resume at 2 o'clock or a little later than that?
Well, at 2, well, it can't be later.
That's 2 o'clock, yeah, 2 o'clock.
So it's 40 minutes break. That's unreasonable. Okay.
Okey doke.
Everyone, see you at 2.